This is the Athletic Football Show's Draft Night Special.
Are you ready? Let's get it started!
Live from the Athletic Draft House in Las Vegas, Nevada. Featuring Robert Mays and Nate Tice. The Athletics draft guru Dane Brugler. Plus, the incomparable Lindsey Jones, and more special guests.
The NFL Draft is now officially open.
Welcome to the Athletic Football Show. I'm Robert Mays. We are live in Las Vegas for the 2022 NFL Draft, and here to break it down like no one else can are our draft experts from the Athletic, including Mr. Dane Brugler. This is your Christmas, my friend.
I'm just so excited that it's finally here. It's finally here, and hey, it's draft night. Let's have fun. This is gonna be great.
Yeah. Also with us tonight, my good friend, Nate Tice, Las Vegas resident. Nate
Yes.
Tice, you have home field advantage
Yes.
while we're here over the next couple days.
I got to commute. I get to sleep in my bed tonight. It's great. Dane and I were talking before the show. He said, being on West Coast time is like a little, wonky, as you know. You in time zones is always
it's an adventure.
difficult
It's
journey.
always an adventure.
So, but like talking about the best part about it though is we start at 5, so Christmas, and then Christmas almost ends early at 8. So it's not like we're on the East Coast. I don't know how you guys do it, where it's 11 o'clock at night and you're watching Pick 31 get made.
This is very similar to the last 2 Super Bowls.
Yes,
The Bucs got to play in their home stadium. The Rams got to play in their home stadium. You are in your home stadium right now.
Yes.
Dane, we've been talking about this for the last 48 hours. You've done this for a very long time. Can you remember a draft with this level of uncertainty? We're here. The draft is starting. We barely know who the number 1 pick is. We certainly don't know how the rest of the top 5 is going to unfold. It's a stark contrast to the type of draft we had last year, where it felt like we understood how the dominoes were going to fall. It feels like anything is on the table right now.
Right, and last year was fun, but it was a little more predictable. And we knew the quarterbacks, kind of where they were going. I mean, Justin Fields is still a surprise, but
You're telling me.
yeah, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Penny. We had a good idea where they were headed. This year, it's all over the map, and that's going to make it a lot of fun. I mean, thinking back, maybe 2018, that's the year Baker Mayfield went 1. We heard some late noise that it was going to be Baker, but we still did. Okay, what does that mean for Sam Darnold? What does that mean for Josh Allen? But those were the quarterbacks. We don't have those quarterbacks this year.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it really, really interesting. When's that first quarterback come off the board? When's that run start? I mean, we were talking about it before. Maybe a trade up.
Yeah.
Probably teens. I don't know. That's going to be fascinating. Who's going to be the team that trades up for the quarterback? Over under 2.5 quarterbacks first round. I don't have a good feeling for any of those answers for any of those questions.
My favorite part about this, though, is that you've leaned into this. You have just been over the moon excited this entire time since I picked you up from the airport. You were just giddy the whole time because you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. That level of uncertainty, just the chaos, the pure chaos. You've leaned into this.
It's fun. I mean, that's what the draft. That's why we love the draft.
Yeah.
It's fun. I mean, last year is the best I ever did on a mock draft. I'm proud of that. That's cool. I hope I go 0 for 32 this year. I hope I do, because that means it's even more fun, even more unpredictable than we even thought. So, and like you said, it starts at 1. We think Trayvon Walker is going to be the pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We think, but would it really shock us if maybe they say Aidan Hutchinson? Would it really be a shock if it's Ike Ekwonu? I mean, when you have the number 1 overall pick, everybody's involved, and if ownership has maybe a late lean, that could change where the Jaguars go. So we think it's Trayvon Walker, but by no means is that a lock.
Yeah. That's what's kind of funny too, is that it took until we'd have no idea. It took the team with the number 1 pick until a last minute meeting the weekend before the draft to finally decide who they're taking with the number 1. So I guess that makes me feel better. I guess I'm in the same boat as the team, the number 1 pick, that we have no clue and they have no clue. So I think whatever one you go down, like you said, the number 1 pick, that's the status symbol.
Yeah.
Like that is a lot of expectations you're putting on a player. So it makes sense that a team's going to do their due diligence, even if it's leading up to what seems like 2 days before where we are right now to make that selection.
And the idea of a draft rise is always overstated. You've had Trayvon Walker in your top 10 since you started doing this process, but still the shuffling at the top.
Yeah.
We just assumed for so long that Aidan Hutchinson would be the number 1 pick in the draft. I mean, that was just the blanket assumption, especially after the Jags did what they did in free agency, where they bring back Cam Robinson, they go sign Brandon Scherff. They have all these pieces on the offensive line. They've committed to the tackles that we suspected might be in play or off the board. So think, all right, they're probably going to go with the pass rusher, because in a draft where no quarterbacks go, it's either an offensive tackle or a pass rusher for the most part. And we always thought it'd be Hutchinson, because It's a double. We know what it is. We probably know what he's going to be. But I think the idea of a Trayvon Walker over an Aidan Hutchinson speaks to what kind of draft this is.
Right. You're betting on traits. You're betting on what this guy could be. And that's what the draft is all about. It's all about the traits. It's all about, making your franchise better, not for necessarily tomorrow, but for the next, 4 or 5 years. And that's what a guy like Trayvon Walker can do. I'm really eager to find out, when's that first trade that we see tonight? Is it in the top 3, top 5, top 10? That's really what's going to start that reshuffling, and that's what's going to make tonight, I think, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Usually
there's like there's maybe one pivot point in the top 10 where you think, oh, whatever happens here, that's going to be this domino effect that starts affecting all the other picks. There are 10.
Yeah,
exactly. And so many of
Yeah.
these picks, I mean, the Panthers are obviously the obvious one, right? The Panthers they could go quarterback. They could trade down. If you're a team that really wants to move up into the top 10 for one of the tackles that's becoming a scarce resource, if we think there's a fall after Charles Cross, if you love Derek Stingley and you think, you know what, this is our spot to go get it, maybe you trade up with Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
If Carolina takes a quarterback, the Giants could become that pick where you get a ton of phone calls. They have 2 picks in the top 10. Maybe that's a spot where a team tries to come up. Everything is on the table. And I just cannot remember a draft like that.
Well, and with little consensus, that's where those crazy trades might happen, because the team might go, hey, that's our guy. We're the ones that's smart and actually really like this guy. So let's move up to 7. Let's move up to 6. That's where I think it's going to happen. This draft is so crazy how little consensus there are. Not just usually like last year, it's like, oh, who's your QB2? Who's your QB3? Who's your receiver 2? This draft is like, who's your 1 through 5 at every position? And so I think that's why it could be even crazier than usual. We're going to keep reiterating how crazy this top 10 might be. The whole first round. Yeah, exactly. What if
Ice Cube's walking on the stage right now? It's about to get crazy.
Did you see Darren Waller, Derek Carr suits and stuff? Yeah. But what if Hutchinson does drop? Like, what if Austin Thibodeau goes number 2 pick? Imagine that chaos that might happen. What if a team just all of a sudden goes, oh shoot, the projected number 1 is now falling to 3, 4, 5, 6. So that might be a whole nother, wild card to throw into this wild card draft.
Who is the player in the top 10 that you just can't wait to see where they go? It's like, oh man, the landing spot, the range, what a team thinks of him. It's the guy you find the most intriguing.
It's got to be Thibodeau, right? I mean, because he could realistically go 2, could realistically go 9. I think that's the range. I don't think he gets past Seattle at 9 if Seattle stays there. So I guess he could fall out of the top 10. Because if Seattle gets a good deal and moves back, that's possible. So Thibodeau realistically could go in so many spots in that top 10, and you would understand it. Because the whole thing with Thibodeau is not that he's falling. It's more, what's the right fit? Where does he necessarily, with the culture fit, with what the coaches are looking for? Yeah. So finding that exact fit, and it could be 2 with Dan Campbell. That is a realistic landing spot for Kayvon Thibodeau.
Absolutely.
Is there a team in the first round that is in the front of your mind right now? The one that when this draft was getting going, when we were in the lead up, the team you just kept coming back to, you're like, I can't wait to see what they do. This is huge for them. Was there one franchise that stuck with you?
For me, it keeps coming back to the Jets, just because this could be a big franchise altering draft for them. Like, it really can. They have pieced together a lot of nice moves the last year or so. So now they have all this draft capital. They could do so many things with those picks. So really curious to see what they do.
How about you, Dan?
Yeah, if not the Jets, then the Giants. Because the 2 teams with multiple picks in the top 10, these are cornerstones of your franchise, and a chance to get better immediately, because both these teams need help right away, but also guys that you want to build around. So whether that's going to be the tackle, corner, and then the other thing too is the wide receiver run. When's that start? Because I think that is what could really spark some trade action. Because if all of a sudden Drake London's off the board, Garrett Wilson's off the board, Jameson, okay, well, some teams in the early 20s, late teens are thinking, shoot, we better move up to get our guy, because Chris Olave might not make it to us, or Traylon Burks.
Chris Olave is going 39th overall. You don't have to worry about any of this.
Someone needs to tell Commissioner Goodell. So, but that's, I mean, a run on receivers is something that could, really spark that trade action we've been talking about.
And the other part about the receivers, Nate, is just that the Jags are on the clock right now, so we'll be paying attention to that as it unfolds here over the next few minutes. The other thing about this receiver class, Nate, and this is true of virtually every receiver class now, is that the sport has changed so much. It's not just that the quality of receivers has been elevated. It's that offenses are tailored around the passing game such now that every different type of receiver can be successful. Yeah. And every different type of receiver could be at a certain role within your offense. So the flavor of a guy that a team likes becomes such an object of fascination.
Mm-hmm.
Does a team love Drake London like you would, because he's a big prototypical ball catching receiver, catch radius, everything else? Does a team say, I want the speed and go get Jameson Williams? Does a team look at a guy like Garrett Wilson and say, this is the most complete player at this position? And I think how that run unfolds, not only when it starts, but the order that it happens in, I just think becomes so interesting when you think about where that position sits in the NFL right now.
It's a lot of guys that are in the same tier, but like you said, now it's what flavor do we like?
Yeah.
Some people might like strawberry, and then some might just go, I would never touch that in a million years. And that's how I think it's going to go. So you see teams that what we've talked about, and I think Dane and I are more or less on the same page with kind of how we tier the receivers as far as grouping them together. But now there's some teams that might go, hey, Chris Olave is too small. We wouldn't take him to the second round, which would be, there's going to be a lot of teams that are happy with the guy they got, and half the other teams are going like, oh my God, can you believe they picked him at 12? Like, that's what this draft's going to be. More than last year is a great comparison, because not only with the quarterbacks that were so good, there's a lot of blue chip guys at every position. You had 2 tackles, you had a couple corners, you had some really good players.
Best tight end prospect in how long?
Forever. Yes. And also the receiver prospects were great. So
and they all hit.
I know, right?
It's not
Spoiled.
it's not
We were
just
spoiled.
that we talked about them this way. It's that every single one of them, I mean, you had a guy at pretty much at almost every position become a Pro Bowl level player as a rookie. Patrick Surtain, we can make an argument, but I think very much on his way there. Kyle Pitts, immediate impact as a receiver, as a rookie. Jamar Chase was an all-pro out of the gate. Rashawn Slater was an all-pro out of the gate. The talent, not only our expectations, but them making good on it, it just feels like this year is a little bit different, even if you're viewing it in an optimistic way.
Right. I mean, you could throw Micah Parsons in there.
Sorry. You run out of guys.
Right. I mean, J.C. Horn probably would have been in there if he didn't get injured. So, I mean, there were so many guys, and that's what we're missing at the top of this draft. That doesn't make this a weak draft. Yeah. It just it's that upper class is a little thin, and every team's going to look a little bit different. And that's going to make it really interesting, especially when you get to the later portion of the first round. Most teams have between 14, 18 first-round grades this year. We're going to see plenty of second-round graded players drafted in the first round. We do every year, but more so this year. We might see a third-round graded player go in the first round, a third-round graded player for most teams. So it's really going to be interesting, not only at the top, but throughout the first round.
Is there a guy that you want to tell people right now, don't be surprised if he goes tonight? Don't be surprised if this name comes across the ticker, even if it might come out of left field.
Maybe like a Quay Walker out of Georgia. And we talk so much about this Georgia defense. Trayvon Walker might go 1. Jordan Davis is going to go somewhere. Quay Walker could be the first linebacker drafted. Would not be surprised at all. 6'4", 240 pounds, 4.52 in the 40. Just big-time athlete. 1 year as a starter, but you feel like, he's not even scratched the surface of what he could be. So Quay Walker, for what a lot of teams look for, the Patriots, the Saints, kind of that bigger body, that athlete. I think Quay Walker could be that player. Tyler Smith from Tulsa. Once we see those first 3 tackles, the first 4 tackles off the board, okay, we're see a little bit of a gap. And then who's that next tackle? Good chance it could be Tyler Smith from Tulsa, who not really quite NFL ready to step in as a left tackle, but maybe you start him at guard. Maybe but he's still going to go because he has the traits.
I put this list together because I thought that Ike Ekwonu was an interesting test case. If you look at it, there have been a few guys over the last 20 years, not as many as you might think, but guys who started as guards that ultimately turned into high-end left tackles. If we're talking about that, it's kind of a development plan. Jonathan Ogden is the classic example. He did 1 year at guard and is one of the best left tackles of all time.
Guard.
Right? But other guys that Andrew Whitworth is somebody that played a decent amount of guard early in his career. Flozo Adams spent a year at guard. Tarek Glenn spent a year at guard. Lincoln Kennedy. These guys aren't Hall of Fame level guys, but there definitely is a precedent for a guy like Ekwonu or somebody like Tyler Smith. If you want to say, you know what, this is how we're going to do this. We're going to slow play it. We're going to give you some time inside, let you learn the tricks of the trade, and then we move you out when you're ready.
It's just having a plan. That's where it is. That's part of the team is going like, hey, we'll give him a shot at left tackle. If he doesn't stick there, okay, we can build some confidence to play him at guard, and that's having a plan as a franchise when you take these guys.
Well, and it gives you options. If you're the Texans and you draft Ike Ekwonu here at 3, Laramie Tunsil's your starter at left tackle. You could play Ike at guard, and then you have your succession plan in place. And so it gives you options with a player. And a guy like Ike, he has that tangible experience. If you want to know how he can play as a guard, Throw on the tape.
Yeah.
He did it at NC State.
Yeah.
You want to know how Evan Neal can play at right tackle or left guard? Throw on the tape.
Yep.
You've seen that. Now, Charles Cross was a left tackle only, but several teams, like we talked about, had worked him out at right tackle. So, there might be optimism that he could play there as well.
Yeah. The Jags pick is in. I just saw a shot of the green room that looks like every single Instagrammable brunch place in America right now with all those green fake hedges. But I mean, the idea of Trayvon Walker going 1, Dane, it seems so crazy based on his production, right? I mean, if you just think about the history of pass rushers that go with the number 1 pick, I went back and it's funny because Mina Kimes tweeted something similar to this earlier this week. But if you look back at the history of guys at that position that go number 1 or even in the top 3, and there are some people, it's like, oh man, they were traitsy, and what was their production like? A Myles Garrett, a Jadeveon Clowney. Almost all of these guys had 25, 30 sacks in college. They were in single seasons or for their careers racking up 80 combined tackles for loss and sacks. Trayvon Walker's not even in that stratosphere. No. And Roger Goodell's walking to the podium right now, and there's a chance that somebody with a handful of sacks is about to be the number 1 pick in the draft.
Right. And this is, just a sidebar. This is what we talked about having a Jags plan. We were talking about Icky, okay, playing at guard, Neal playing at guard. That's why I was liking, even with the Cam Robinson re-signing.
There it is.
Trayvon Walker.
In the 2022 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Trayvon Walker, linebacker.
There it is.
Big Trayvon.
Dane, you can take a victory lap right now if you want to. You had him in a mock at number 1 fairly early, didn't you?
Well, he's been a player that I've been advocating as, listen, focus on the traits. Every tape you put on, like, it's not as simple as watching Von Miller and seeing him, that initial step, that bend. Like, this guy is just a little bit different with how he's used, how he's built. But and then the combine, he blew up, and I think a lot of people have this misconception that the combine is what put Trayvon Walker into the number 1 pick conversation. He was already there for teams because when you watch the tape, you see these traits, the length, you see the ability to move for a 275-pounder. You shouldn't be able to move like that. I mean, it's really
outlandish.
It really
if you
is.
look at his spider chart, it is outlandish. 4.51. The arms are it's absolutely insane. 35.5-inch arms. There aren't that many people who have ever been drafted who are physically put together like this, Nate. But there is a huge chasm between what that is and what the production is. How scared are you about that?
A little, but this is the argument for it, is that all the other guys we will refer to as doubles and singles, like this guy has a chance to just keep ascending and keep, rising to a new level. Even in the clips right now that ESPN just showed, they had one where he split out, he bumps out into coverage because he'll do that from the end spots. How fluid he is as a mover at 275. He moves like he's 240. And on top of that, he has long arms and he plays tough. You can tell he's trying to work things out. It's just that you're betting on the arrow just keep pointing up for him. And I understand that. At number 1 pick, that's spicy, but sometimes you have to tolerate that spice to get what you want.
The Lions pick is in, so we'll keep an eye on that here for a second. Here's my concern with this, Dane, and especially for the Jags. If you look at the Jags draft history recently, every other Cam Robinson is the only player drafted in the first 2 rounds from 2014 through 2018 that is currently on the Jaguars roster.
Goodness.
That's hard to do.
It is hard to do.
Miles Jack was the other one that was still on the roster until recently.
Right.
But now you look back at it from the first and second round. If you're a team that cannot draft, develop, and retain its players, is it worth swinging for the fences rather than just saying, I want a guy who's going to be here in 4 years?
And I'm a big believer in learning from our mistakes, but not letting our past mistakes, don't carry it with us where it's going to really impact our future decisions.
That's philosophy for life. I love that.
Right?
I mean, because
it's the Calvin Johnson argument.
Right, exactly. You don't want to pass on a talent if you really believe Trayvon Walker is that type of dude. He's going to come in, and this is going to sound bad, but like at the very worst, this guy's going to be a really good run defender.
Yeah.
And I know you don't want to hear that. We're talking about the
number one pick.
I know. You don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
But I don't think this guy's going to bust.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be a really good run defender, and then he's going to develop. This is a projection. As much as I love Trayvon Walker, it's a projection because he wasn't asked to consistently rush off the edge, and so patching together that pass rush moves, the timing, it's an art, and so it will take time for him to develop that. But the talent is there.
Yeah. I think the run defense point is a great point, though. It gives them a floor to work off
Yeah.
of. Hey, at least we're not wasting reps on this guy and he's getting buried for 35 snaps. It's like, no, he's actually doing stuff.
So now the intrigue starts here.
It was Hutchinson.
Yeah,
Okay.
Aidan Hutchinson goes number 2
It's a
overall
no-brainer.
to the
Yeah.
Lions. This makes so much sense
Yeah.
to me. They drive 20 minutes down the road to
Yeah.
Ann Arbor to watch his games. And we're talking about a coach and a franchise.
Yeah.
I think the phrase I used on our mock draft earlier this week is, this is a dude who prides himself on like eating nails for breakfast.
Yeah.
If we're talking about culturally just a fit and positional need, so many things seem to align with what Aidan Hutchinson is, what the Lions want to be, and what they needed as a team.
Absolutely.
The geography is more of a fun story than something that should really matter. But he is born and raised in Michigan. Like, he is stayed home to play for the Wolverines. Now he's going to play his professional football in the state of Michigan. That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
But more than that, this is a really good football player. Do you wish he were a little bit longer? Sure. Is he the most bendy edge rusher? No, but he doesn't need to be to win. Pass rushers come in different sizes and in the ways they win. And a guy like Hutchinson, very skilled with his hands. And this is not a try-hard competitor. He has the same 3-cone as Von Miller. Like, it's not paying him to be this
traits.
this overachiever type. I mean, he is, but he doesn't need to be because he's already this fantastic athlete.
It's funny seeing a guy from Michigan, though. Like, usually when you see the guy go in high school, college, and then pros all in the same state, it's like a guy who's from South Florida goes to like Florida or Miami and then gets drafted by like the Bucks, or like Warren Sapp, like you go Miami to the Bucks, something like that. Don't usually get the Michigan path, like all the way from high school to college, all the way to the pros. But no, Hutchinson is his numbers kind of like are weird, like testing, but he is a good athlete. And I think people had in their mind, they're like, oh, he's a try-hard guy. But the thing is, I love that you brought up his hand usage, because that's how he wins. Every guy wins different. Do we want everyone to do the ghost technique? Yes. Yes, we want all of our edges to be able to do that. We want Brian Burns. We want that bend. You want the Von Millers. But like he said, like you just said, he wins in a different way, and it's a tangible way, and he affects the game.
A lot of people don't know this, but at the combine, they will time the pass rush moves. And this guy, Aidan Hutchinson, had the best or the fastest swim move out of every pass rusher at the combine. That's one of his favorite moves. That's how he wins a lot of times when he gets to the quarterback. So this is a guy that does not go on spring break because he wants to get better at football. He lives in the building, both practice field, film room. I mean, he wants to get better. He wants to be the best, and he's got a lot of ability. And a lot of people are saying that, that this guy came out of nowhere. Like, oh, he was a third round. I think he was my 13th overall player in August. Like, he had an injury last year, so a little bit off the radar, but still a top half of round one type of guy coming into this year. So another guy, he did not come out of nowhere. Had a fantastic season, and I tell you what, that Ohio State game just kind of elevated him to a higher level.
So I don't watch much college football.
No.
And I come to these guys very, very late. I was watching the Michigan-Ohio State game, and I'm watching the game. I was like, 97 is pretty good. And then I looked it up and realized he might be the number 1 pick in the draft. I was like, oh, good. I'm glad that I could pick up on that while I'm watching this. Dane, he's an interesting valuation just because when you watch him, his little, like, if he's going in and out, his side-to-side quickness is very real. The 3-cone drill comes through when you watch him play, but he's not as refined as a Bosa. And his arms are very short. He's in like that Trey Hendrickson range. So finding like a real comp for him, I think, is much more difficult than it might seem at first glance when you're just trying to like throw him in with the Bosas.
Yeah, I mean, because there are some similarities to the Bosas with the way he uses his hands, some of the quickness things that matches up. But you're right, the length, even at like the 10-yard split was not on the Bosas level. So that initial burst, the Bosas have them there. But there are still some similarities you can make. But the Hendricks one, that's a good comparison because of the lack of arm length. And I know Henderson was a third rounder, right? So it's a little bit different, but he's also a player that helped get the Bengals to the Super Bowl. So good player.
I ended up with Kyle Vandenbosch as my comparison, and I didn't realize Vandenbosch had shorter arms too. He was like 32 and a quarter, 32 and a half, or something like that. So that was I ended up with that one because that's how. And funny, Lions with Hutchinson now is that hand usage, and we're going to keep bringing it up because it gives him the floor, because now he doesn't have to have a perfect rep as far as kind of like the bend and everything, getting an angle. That's what so many of these guys, when you're such a good athlete, they're able to find favorable angles and recover from that. He puts himself in a good position. That's why he is a good player, because when he's rushing, it's like, yes, he doesn't get that edge, but he's swiping the tackle by, and he might not get to the quarterback, but he's creating pressure because now the tackles, has to recover and set back. So those are the things, those little pressures, those little things. That's what makes Hutchinson kind of it's unique in a way. He had production, but I think in the pros might be an 8-sack guy, but with a ton of pressures where he's just really affecting the game play after play.
And I think if you're the Lions, this is still a team that is in the early stages of their rebuild, even though it's year 2. I mean, they did not have much talent. They had to really undo a lot of the stuff that the previous regime
In the
did.
2022
They were 31st
NFL
in pressure
draft,
rate. They needed
the
a pass
Houston
rush.
Texans select Derek Stingley Jr.,
Okay.
defensive back.
All right.
Hey, 3 for 3 in the mock.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
nice. Nice.
Walk me through the conversation that Texans were probably having, and a lot of teams were probably having, about Derek Stingley over the last few days.
It's which guy are we getting? Are we getting the 2019 version, or are we getting the guy that we kind of have worries about? Can he stay healthy? Is he going to be a guy that's stays on the field, is reliable, going to fight through injuries? As we know, that's a big part of playing the NFL.
Yep.
Is just fighting through those minor injuries. And talking to people at LSU, they said he did. He fought through those injuries. Now they said he's not like an alpha personality. That's not what he does. That's not how he carries himself. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But he's going to a team that, with Lovie Smith as head coach, a team that is totally rebuilding. I mean, they're looking for building blocks. This guy is their defensive building block. So a little surprised. I think this came down to Ike Ekwonu, that offensive tackle, or Derek Stingley. And very interesting that they went with the corner. They went with, because we know there's a good chance tackles aren't going to, slip to their second pick, that 13th pick, where corner, maybe. It stretches maybe a little bit more. They just went with their favorite player.
Yeah.
The reason I asked you that, and the reason I framed the question that way, is that in a draft where there aren't those clear-cut top 5 talents, I can just imagine, Nate, a team sitting there in the draft room looking at that 2019 tape and thinking, what if we get that guy?
Yeah.
And talking yourself into it that way. And when you're a team like Houston that has nothing, I mean, we're going to talk about this a little bit later when their second pick comes up, but just the lack of roster definition they have beyond next year is insane.
Yeah.
So when you're at that stage and you're saying we need everything, watching that 2019 tape and seeing that player in this draft, especially not that far removed from the Trayvon Walker conversation, feels like a dice roll that might be worth taking.
Oh, absolutely. And his 2021 tape wasn't as big of a drop off as I was maybe expecting. Didn't play the best competition, but it was still like, I was like, you can see it. You watch this guy, he moves different. He's just one of those guys that you watch him, he understands the corner position, because it's such a, I won't say technique, an awareness, high awareness position. And on top of that, he tested really well. So yeah, it's going to come down to health. That's really his biggest knock. And honestly, for a Texans team, it's just like, hey, we say BPA, best player available, just right here. It's a premium position. It's corner. We have a top 5 pick. Do we really want this guy? Let's just take a guy that does have that talent. And I'm just more curious too. It's like, all right, is Lovey going to be running any cover 2? Because that's a waste with this guy, because he can run man all day. And so that's kind of that's something interesting. Now I wonder what the Texans are going to throw out of defenses here.
Dane, where would you say that Stingley's 2019 season ranks for you in terms of individual cornerback seasons that you've scouted in the past with other players?
I mean, the production alone, 21 passes defended, 6 interceptions. Okay, that alone.
As a freshman.
In the SEC.
It feels
In the
fake.
SEC.
Yeah. Like, it's just, those don't seem like real numbers.
And he played for an LSU team that won the national championship, with Joe Burrow on the other side scoring a bunch of points.
Mm-hmm.
So defense, or the offenses were, trying to score points as well, trying to keep up. And Derek Stingley was up to the task. True freshman, steps in. And this is a guy that grew up around the game. I mean, his dad, his grandfather, the former players, he grew up around it. And going back to, how important that pro day was, because, getting on the field and moving around without that pro day, he probably does not go with this pick at number 3. I mean, to go out there the pro day.
Do you think that's good process?
Maybe it's just, peace of mind,
Yeah.
because, he's on tape, you can see the athleticism, but being able to see him go out there and over 6 foot and you're running a 4.44, you're running under a 7-second 3 cone. You're doing all these things that, he could do, but then you see the feet. You're like, oh man, okay, this guy's still got it. The way he's moving out there, we'll take our chances. This guy will hold up. So I totally get the thought process. But yeah, it will be interesting now with Lovey, because he could do both zone, man. You could play off. He can do that. No worries there, but it will be interesting to see just, how they deploy their coverages.
Yeah.
It's funny to me because every once in a while, this is a very simplistic way of looking at the scouting process, but sometimes you watch a guy and it's just like, that's the best guy.
Yeah.
And I think with his freshman tape out there, and especially like you said, Nate, at a premium position, in a draft like this where you just don't know how many home runs there are, when you can just throw that on and think, that's the best guy in the field. If we get him and we get that player who just has a sense, not only physically checks the boxes for the position, but gets his head around, plays the ball, all of those things that are truly intangible elements of playing the position. He seems to have tapped into that on top of being a 5-star recruit, being this guy that does everything you want from a physical perspective.
The pro day like confirmation is so funny though, because we've talked about this on the show, Robert, is that like anyone can on a perfect day at the combine when they're all stretched out and doing the cleat stuff. Yes, you can run your 4.38, your 4.42 as almost like a track meet. NFL is middle of week 12, middle of week 14, and you're banged up with a sprained ankle and a bum knee, and you're still running that 4.4. You know, that is what being in the NFL, being a professional athlete really is, because these seasons are long. But I think that's why where that pro day is, as opposed to like a Drake London who kept pushing off his 40, pushing off his 40 until he never ran it. Stingley's like, no, I'm healthy enough. Let's go. And then he just went and ran it. So maybe that is, I would say confirmation, but more like, hey, I like that. Okay, he is checking that box that he can wake up and just run.
Jets pick is in, and we've talked about this all week, the idea of them potentially getting Ike Ekwonu and what that might mean for the next 6 months of the New York Jets with Mekhi Becton already there. I mean, what do you think the Jets are the conversation the Jets are having with Joe Douglas, with Robert Saleh right now, the players on the board? What debate do you think possibly is going on?
At this point, I don't know that there's much debate, as is just, are we comfortable with who's going to be there at 10 and our process? Because you have 2 picks here in top 10, 2 picks early in the second round. You know, let's make sure we're maneuvering to get the best 4 players, or maybe 3 players if they want to move around a little bit. You know, we'll see how that plays out. But I think the first 3 picks with how they've gone, the Jets are feeling good because they can go offensive line if they want to with Icky. They could go Sauce Gardner if they wanted to with the corner. I don't think it's going to be Thibodeau, but we're going to see a surprise at some point. So why not now?
I know you can't. How long what did you have it for? Do you have Thibodeau here? Or,
no, I've got Icky here.
You have Icky. Okay, we got to keep the mock going. Right?
What would you do?
I think Icky is I understand the Icky argument, especially with what you brought up on our show, and it's really picked up a lot of steam with the Becton worries and having just kind of, it's a plan. Again, everything does work out with Becton. Okay, we got Icky too. That's adding juice to the offensive line.
Pick
Here we go.
in the 2022 NFL Draft,
I'm curious what you
the New York Jets select Sauce Gardner.
Wow.
Defensive back, Cincinnati.
All right.
It is.
So again, this is one of those picks. If you look at the Jets roster and you think about the makeup, even if there are concerns about Becton, he's there.
Yeah.
They have George Fant. They have 2 starting tackles. Can you name me the Jets' second corner right now after DJ Reed, the guy they signed in free agency?
The kid who went to Virginia. I'm blanking on his name. But
I think it's Breece Hall is currently their number 2
not
quarterback.
Breece Hall.
Not Breed.
That's the running back in
That's
this draft.
Back.
I know.
Something. We do this for a living. The fact that we can't do this right now.
Bryce Hall.
Bryce Hall
thank
is
you.
very
Yes.
telling. And
Yeah.
that's why when I looked at the depth chart and the idea that you had 2 top-tier corners potentially available, that made sense to me. But apparently that was not what most people were thinking coming into this draft.
Well, it goes more to strategy, where Coach Saleh, where he's been in Seattle and San Francisco, they didn't use premium draft capital on the cornerback position. They didn't need to. They felt like it all starts up front with the pass rush. And so that's where, my thinking, a lot of other people's thinking was, okay, they're going to target pass rush here. And, maybe if Hutchinson did fall or Trayvon Walker did fall here, maybe that's the direction they do go. But, I don't blame him for going this direction. It's just, it is a little surprising we know how Saleh likes to, run that defense, and it all starts up front.
And it makes sense in the sense of like how his size and everything, because that's the classic Seahawk length corner.
Right.
Like they love, I mean, it was like 32 inches minimum when they came into Atlanta. That's basically what they told us. I was like, okay. But this is a guy that actually matches that, but he plays competitive, which all those Seahawk guys, I know we're talking about the Jets and Saleh, but all those guys, they love the competitiveness that he brings, that the high IQ play that he has at the corner position. And it makes sense, even though Saleh has gone some cover 3s, now doing more quarter stuff that we see everybody doing. But
this seems to align with that, right?
It makes so much sense.
Yeah. They were 12th in the NFL this year in man coverage. In man coverage percentage. They play man 30% of the time. And if you're doing that combined with some quarters where you can be as aggressive as you want to, you can be as passive as you want to, I think that it allows his traits to really shine potentially in this scheme, even if it's changed a little bit over the years.
And it has the like domino effect of now DJ Reed can be a number 2, which is what he should be. Now he's not your dude, and teams will attack him or anything. But now it's, have we seen with those quarters teams, they face, a trips formation. Okay, Sauce, you're on the X, one-on-one, baby. That's ISO ball on you. And then now DJ Reed, who's more of a aggressive, heady player, physical player. Now that makes more sense for him to work to the field and stuff. It's a nice pairing. I like how they complement each other on the outside there.
What would be your concern with Gardner? Just if this was going to go wrong, what do you envision?
I mean, Gardner was a little bit of a slow burn for me just because nobody threw at him.
Targets.
Yeah, exactly.
There's none.
He accounted for 11% of the defensive targets last season on that Cincinnati defense. Nobody.
It's a lot of tape to sit through.
Nobody threw at him, and then the teams that did, he wasn't exactly going up against top tier wide receiver talent or just quarterback talent. So I think that was part of the issue. Is you could see the traits, the way he moves. You see how long he is, but you just wanted to see more on tape. And so there are times down the field. I mean, the Navy tape is standing out to me where he can get tied up a little bit, and just in terms of getting his body turned, going to make a play. He'll make some early contact, things like that. But no, this is a big guy who's long, 4.41 in the 40-yard dash. A little concerning that that's literally the only drill he did. No 3-cone, nothing, no jumps, nothing else, just a 4.41. But this is also a guy that brings energy. Yep. He brings just a lot of just swag. And I mean, sauce. He had that nickname since he was 6 years old, playing youth football. And why sauce? I don't know. I just bring the sauce, and okay, you know what? It fits. I get it. Big applesauce now, and for the Jets.
It is my favorite nickname coming into the draft that I can remember. I mean, what other ones have there been that are even like in this range? Like it's,
I don't know. Is Jordan Davis named like Tiny or something like that? That would be amazing.
I mean, it's absolutely my favorite nickname that has become the name for any player that's come into the draft in recent years. Yeah. Just because it's perfect. It's a perfect word.
Yeah. It's not just like, oh, that's a nickname that a couple of people call him. Like only the fan base calls him. It's like, no, that he goes by Sauce.
Marissa was, when we were talking about the production, she didn't know whether to put Sauce or Ahmad Gardner on the bottom third of the screen. I mean, that's how ingrained this is right now. The Giants pick is in. No trades so far.
Nope.
We have
We're getting in the danger zone now.
Yeah. we knew the Giants were looking at corners, so you wondered would they try to get up in front of the Texans or the Jets because they knew corner could go there. I mean, this has got to be offensive line, right?
Yeah, this feels like icky.
This is one of those teams, and we've discussed this with a couple others. When you're picking in the top 5, everything should be on the board. Mm-hmm. This is a new regime. Anything that feels like it's already established and in place with the Giants is probably more tenuous than anybody thinks.
Right.
So even if it seems positionally like, oh, they should go this way or they should go that way, I don't think there's anything preventing them from a player that's still currently on the board unless it's a quarterback.
Oh, absolutely.
And even that seems like it can potentially be somewhere in the cards for them if they want it to be.
Well, Ickey's still on the board, so it would make a lot of sense because of his versatility across the line and what they think of Andrew Thomas. Like you said, a new regime, everybody's job's on the line. Everybody's job is, it's a competition. So yes, they can say, Dane and I were talking about this before the show, but like Charles Cross, some teams are working him out at right tackle, is okay. They can say that right now, but that might just make Andrew Thomas's life a little bit like, hey, don't worry about it, bud. You got that job. But I think that's what it is. They're just going to try and find the best talent. And I think, this GM coming over there from Buffalo, they know how to build a team. They like to build a team with premium spots. They don't like to chase anything. I think it's going to be a very more sound pick for them, which makes me think it's icky, but let's see.
Sam is post-heart transplant
so pumped up.
and feeling stronger than ever, as you can see.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Tonight, his wish to announce the Giants' first pick comes true. We hope this wish will be a turning.
In relation to just this blank slate that we're talking about. You guys can see it here. 29 players only that are currently projected to be on the 2023 Giants roster. They have $95 million in estimated salary cap space. That's right now. They have cuts to make. If they want to move on from Kenny Golladay, if they want to move on
the 5th pick
from
in the 2022 NFL Draft, the New York Football Giants select Kayvon Thibodeau, defensive end, Oregon.
There we go.
Wow. Well, and you wonder, okay, the Giants picking 2 picks.
Yeah.
There's 3 offensive linemen on the board.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you know, they feel comfortable with all 3, or at least 2 of them, you know, you're going to get one at 7 if that's the direction they want to go. And they know Carolina wants to move back, so it would be pretty easy for a Seattle to move up to 6 or somebody to come up and snipe Thibodeau. So they went with the player that they felt like there was at least a chance they would not be able to get at 7. That's fascinating. That's
well, it speaks to tiers, right?
Yeah,
Because
right.
now if we've already had 2 pass rushers go off. If you think that there is a drop off after Thibodeau in the pass rushing tiers, and all 3 offensive linemen are still on the board, and you have them all in the same tier, then it makes total logical sense to do it this way.
Absolutely. This man, kind of stunned me because like a little bit.
Why?
This is the first.
What's surprising about
no,
it?
just like I haven't really thought of the link up between the Giants and
Yeah,
Thibodeau.
you haven't seen it very often.
No, and
that's true.
it makes total sense. Like the Giants, that's what we just stated this, but it just they could have gone down any path and it made sense just with their roster. They're resetting it. I mean, really hard reset. I think we just got to keep emphasizing how hard they're pushing that button. But this makes sense. This guy at one time, we talked about Hutchinson got rumored as number 1 pick. Thibodeau was the guy that was, front runner for a little bit until it became more of a discussion. So he still has talent, and the Giants are trying to find as much talent as they can.
What do you think that has sparked that discussion? Like when Kayvon Thibodeau is a huge recruit. When you watch some of those splash plays, I think of the UCLA game, for example, it's hard not to get intoxicated by that. What do you think gave some teams or some analysts pause in the process when they were thinking about him? And I'm talking solely football stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are times where you don't always see the same effort. He's not a guy that I think takes a lot of plays off. That's not necessarily something that I truly worry about. But he's not a natural bender per se. I mean, he's got that forward lean where he's going to use that length, use that power. The hands are so strong and go through guys. But he's not a natural bender per se. And so, I mean, but we're nitpicking at this point. Yeah. I think this is a player that he's going to give you disruption. He's a really good run defender. And with a new regime with the Giants, there's some question marks about which direction they would go. 2 picks in the top 10. You can't miss on these. These have got to be cornerstone players. And so would Thibodeau be a little too volatile for them? Or do they see the upside? That's great. That's amazing. The excitement. I mean, Thibodeau, Thibodeau's a guy that cares about his brand, and that's okay.
Yeah.
He's going to New York.
New York, yeah.
I mean, he's going to a market that is going to be able to, really market him. And so, but you know what? His market will not matter. His brand will not matter if he does not show up on Sundays.
Right.
And so that's what I keep coming back to is, yeah, while you do worry maybe a little bit about how much he cares about things off the field, if he's not taking care of his business on the field, the rest of the stuff won't matter. He knows that that football is an integral part of this, and I get why you do this as you try to upgrade the pass rush position.
It's interesting to me, Nate, because Wink Martindale is the defensive coordinator for the Giants now. We know where Wink Martindale just came from. If you look at the way that the Ravens have built that roster over the last couple of years and just schematically what they've done, a lot of pressure, a lot of pass rush by committee. The Ravens aren't typically spending premium picks on pass rushers. So this immediately is a departure from what we've seen from Wink Martindale over the last few years.
Absolutely. No, but that's the thing. I think that's where, I really wanted them to take a corner there because it would just make sense with what Wink wants to do. So I think maybe they did too. And also those two went there and they're like, okay, all right, well, Thibodeau sounds pretty nice right now. But those, I love what you brought up, Dane, and saying that it won't matter all the off-field stuff if he's just not playing on the field. Yeah. Everyone get that first endorsement deal when you're a rookie and everything's hunky-dory and the shine's still on you and you're on the Subway deal and all that. But then, ask Baker and the progressive commercials, those probably won't happen next year. It's just like getting a second contract as a player. All that other stuff will go away if you're not doing anything on the field. I would actually think that when people go, oh, he has too much off-field stuff, might be a good thing because that means we're still talking about him because he's doing something on the field. So, yeah, he's going to New York. I think he's pretty happy about that as well.
What were the odds of 0 offensive linemen going to top 5?
This is stunning to me.
That's I would have thought. I mean, at least one had to go.
Guess who might be thrilled? The team that's currently on the clock right now.
We went through scenarios where 3 offensive tackles were off the board before the Carolina could pick. So, I mean, yes, Carolina's been a franchise that's been trying to move back. They've made a ton of calls. But now with 3 offensive tackles sitting there, yes, you do want those seconds and thirds because they don't pick again until 137.
Yeah.
So you do want to get back into day 2. But man, it would be tough to pass on one of these tackles here.
And they just picked. So the Panthers pick is in. We still 6 picks in, have no trades. But we also didn't expect to have 3 offensive tackles on the board.
We're going to be watching more of the draft than the Panthers are. after this pick.
I don't want to belabor this point, but I just find it so interesting with the parallels between what the Bills did when Joe Shane was the assistant GM there, and then Brian Dable was eventually the offensive coordinator, and what the Giants might do. Dane and I were talking about this before the draft. The year 2 of the McDermott Bean era in Buffalo, they took on $70 million in dead cap to remake that roster. And they had a lot of bloated veteran deals that they had to move on from in order to really hit that reset button hard and start over. And that's what the Giants might be looking at. And that's why when you're thinking about Kayvon Thibodeau or you're thinking about whoever they're going to pick at 7, you almost have to completely divorce yourself from the way that you currently understand the Giants and their roster, just because it's a figment of the past.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, it couldn't be any more opposite than what they've done in the last few years as far as just how I think they view the game. And I'm just guessing, of course, they haven't seen the field yet, but the coaching staff they put together, how they're just kind of talking about everything, it just seems like, okay, they're going away. They have a midterm plan, a long-term plan. They're not just going, all right, we want to do this. I finally am in charge and I want to do this. And the way you see so many first regimes do that, and it's like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it seems to me that they're being patient, which is, I mean, if you're a Giants fan, it's what you want. I want anyone from that Bills front office, because to me, I think that's one of the better ways to build a team in the modern day.
You're sitting there at 6 right now. You're Carolina. Their pick is in. But if you're making this pick and you're picking between the 3 tackles, which direction are you going?
Keep Icky. I mean, he grew up in Charlotte. Keep him in town. He went to NC State. Keep him in the state. He played left tackle. Yes, he's a better run defender or run blocker than pass blocker right now. But the strides that he made this year, man, he was fun to watch.
Yeah.
But all these tackles, you could really make a case for. I don't think that there's no consensus top tackle this year. Icky's my favorite, but I understand why someone might go for Evan Neal and the versatility he offers. He's a little more consistent. He's been doing it longer. You look at Charles Cross. The movement patterns with his feet are outstanding. The hand exchange, well above average. So, I mean, with all due respect to Cam Irving, the Panthers need to draft a left tackle here.
Yes.
I mean, it's something that they need to do for whoever's at quarterback. And they've got 3 good options staring them right in the face.
If you look at the rotating cast that's been at quarterback over the last 3 years, and the fact that every 2 weeks it seems like they change their minds. Remember they signed Cam Newton to a $6 million deal last year in the middle of the season?
Yep.
It's amazing the moving target that position has been for them. Left tackle's been worse. If you look back over the last 6 seasons, the Panthers have had a different starting left tackle in week 1 every year for the last 6 years. Let me run it off for you. 2021 Cam Irving, 2020 Russell Okung, 2019 Darrell Williams, 2018 Darrell Moten, 2017 Matt Khalil, 2016 Mike Lore.
Gotta love it, huh?
It's incredible.
That's amazing.
Wanting
at least it's not
beyond the instability. That's what I'm saying. Beyond the instability at quarterback, the instability at arguably the second most important position on your offense, you wonder why this team has struggled to find any sort of footing offensively. Right. Quarterback is part of it, but it's not the only issue, Dane.
Well, and I don't want to make excuses for the quarterbacks, but that's part of it too.
Ikwonu.
There he is.
Tackle, North Carolina State.
Makes total sense.
If you're Carolina, you have to be thrilled with how this is unfolded.
Absolutely.
Thrilled. The one position that you almost had to leave this draft with a player when you consider the available options on the free agent market and the players available in this class and where you were picking, you get your pick of those 3 guys. And that's exactly what just unfolded. It was a pretty perfect hour for them.
Yeah, it really was. I don't think they were very confident going in, but it worked out perfectly. And like we said, Charlotte kid, stayed in state to go to NC State for college. Now he's going to stay. We just got like the Aidan Hutchinson conversation. So it is just really cool to see. Yeah. We talked about it on the pod earlier this week. My favorite player to watch on film this week, him and Trayvon Walker were my 2 favorite players to watch because they're freaky dudes. I mean, they do things that you just don't normally see on the football field. Ikwonu, especially as a run blocker, how explosive he is at contact, how violent he plays. This guy is just different, and he's so smart, so bright. Yep. Talking to him, you just come away thinking, okay, this guy, he gets it. I mean, he really understands not just what he's supposed to be doing, but the rest of the offensive line. He understands what they need to execute, and so yes, still has things to learn, but he's going to plug and play from day one. I'll be shocked if he is not the starting left tackle week 1 in the opener for the Panthers.
For a team needing good vibes, he's going to bring good vibes.
That's exactly what I was just thinking about. When you drop a presence like that in with that sort of physicality, you know this, Nate. You were on the Raiders when they signed Kelechi Osemele. And you have this group, especially in Oakland back then, where finesse is kind of a dirty word in the NFL, but they were finesse offensive line. You had guys like Rodney Hudson, who was an amazing pass blocker. Gabe Jackson hadn't really tapped into that side of himself yet. Donald Penn was a little bit older. And then you drop Kelechi Osemele into that equation, and everything else kind of changes for you. And, you know, they've made some other signings, right? They brought in a new center. They signed Austin Corbett in free agency. They've done some work here along the offensive line. And this really has a chance to kind of unlock everything, not only from a positional standpoint, from a mindset standpoint.
Absolutely. And the talent there is, like Tane said, he's such a fun watch. Some linemen, it's more like, oh, he's a technician. Like David Bakhtiari. Love David Bakhtiari. He's not the most fun watch in the world because he's shielding guys and you love his traits, but like Icky makes, just like Kelechi did. Kelechi was posting tweets of like him pancaking guys and laughing.
He loved it.
He loved, and Icky has that same mindset. Like, and he's so smart. And on top of it, like just that position, and I posted a clip of him this week because I was writing an article on the tackles, and he was pulling and how he moved, how fluid he was as a mover. And there's 2 offensive linemen that replied to me. I want to say Mike Golick Jr. is one of them. He goes, the guy false stepped 3 times and he's still moving quicker than anybody else on the field. And it's like, that's the thing, is he's still good right now. He's going to be plug and play. He's not just some project, but his upside is so interesting and so exciting. That's what makes him such a fun player.
And there really aren't that many left tackles in the league who are the best run blockers on their team.
Right. Yeah.
I think the list might be like 1 guy long. Trent Williams is that kind of presence for San Francisco.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's not typically a position where that's the guy bringing that kick ass to your room.
Right.
And for Carolina, that's exactly what he could potentially be for them.
Yeah.
No doubt. And whoever's taking snaps under center is going to benefit from this. So if Sam Darnold is the starter, or whether or not they trade for a Jimmy Garoppolo, a Baker Mayfield, time will tell. But regardless, it is going to help whoever they put in there at quarterback, and we'll see the sequencing, how that affects the quarterback, how that affects the offense. This is a big piece that they were missing.
Absolutely, I know it just rejuvenates. Like now, it's your best 5. Yes, left tackle is the most important one, but really, it's just offensive line is just getting our 5 best players out there. So no matter what, it's like, okay, we're upgrading because now so like a Corbett. He's not our offensive lineman 2 anymore. Now he's our offensive lineman 3.
Right.
Like that trickle effect, just like a corner position with Sauce going to the Jets. Same kind of thing. It's like now those other guys are put in better spots as well.
And I do want to credit Bruce Feldman because he came out with an article about Icky over a year ago. I mean, before he was even in the thought process, saying, "Hey, oh wow, this guy's pretty good." And I mean, going back to high school when he's running the relay at 285 pounds, like just is a freak,
different
dude.
level.
Yeah, and the strides he made this year. Really impressive. And he was voted by the ACC coaches as the best blocker in the ACC. So he made some big strides this year.
He really did. Doing that article again, like I finally got to watch 2 games I hadn't before when watching Icky, and they're late in the season. I was like, okay, I want to see how he improved. And his pass set's already improved. And I was like, oh, that's good. Because that was just one big issue. He overset. It's like, dude, you're a freak athlete. No one's getting around you. You're fine, man. Like, and I think it finally clicked for him in the second half of the year. And it's another guy where the arrow's pointing up for him.
The Giants their pick is in for the Giants at 7.
The
so
New
all
York
those trades that
Giants
we've anticipated in the top
Evan
10,
Neal,
we've had none so
tackle,
far.
Evan Neal.
Alabama.
Evan Neal.
And that's so again, the guy that played right tackle.
Yep.
They have, you can throw on the tape and say, okay, there's no projection here with the Charles Cross.
Yep.
We're taking the guy that actually played right tackle, and whether or not is where he's going to start long term, they at least they know he has that left tackle, right tackle versatility.
Yep. It's not theory. Like you said, you put on the tape. If you want to watch him play guard, put on the tape. Play right tackle, put on the tape. That helps so much. I think just he has a whole season of experience. It's not even just a pinch start in high level games. So that just helps when you're in the NFL rather than spending all summer and going like, oh, well, preseason game 1, let's see how you do on the right side, and he still has enough. He's still a very good player that could end up on the left side down the road. Like who knows with Andrew Thomas, whether they bump him to the right. I don't think they will, but you don't know. Now they have a plan. They have backup plans, different paths they can go on. That's what Neal provides.
And guess what? Doesn't take a lot for Brian Dable to get somebody on the phone from the University of Alabama and ask this guy play right tackle.
That's right.
A quick little phone call for him down there. They didn't overlap when he was the offensive coordinator there, but that's a That's a well-worn path
Absolutely.
between Nick Saban and Brian Daboll and what those guys are probably talking
about.
We
need Ozzie Newsome still around. They call him for the defensive players.
So now you look at it, right? So the Giants have 2 top 7 picks in this draft. They come away with a pass rusher and an offensive tackle. So we talk about this blank slate that the Giants are kind of starting with. There's a chance in a couple of years you have your left tackle you drafted 4th overall, your right tackle you drafted 7th overall, pass rusher you drafted 5th overall, and that's how you built the foundation of this team.
Built through the lines and with premium picks too, top 10 picks on those guys. I mean but that's how you do it. And then when you finally do, if you decide Daniel Jones is your guy or a quarterback down the road, a different guy, they're at least getting put in a position to succeed. They're not with the Bears with Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence, where it's like, oh,
really
God,
I was having such a good time.
I know. I almost bit my tongue, but it was, but you're not putting those positions. Which like, okay, I see some glimpses still, but he's on his back for the other 5 snaps of that drive. So we couldn't really see how he finished on that play. So that at least what they're playing at other positions that helps them out.
And Evan Neal is a guy that he started 40 games the last 3 years. He missed 1 game his entire career at Alabama. That's because of a COVID test. So this is a guy that's reliable, dependable, versatile, and for a guy that size, the flexibility he plays with, some of the movements, it's different. He is a really just high. I think he does have a ceiling, but he also has a high floor, I think, as well.
Yeah.
If you look at what the Bills' offensive line was over the last couple of years, I actually really appreciate how the Bills built that line because it's dice rolls on cheap guys where it's just like
Island of Misfit Toys.
And that's exactly the term. They were the Island of Misfit Toys. Now you're Bobby Johnson after having to piece together like, oh, we got Darrell Williams for 1 year and $8 million. And we got this and we got that. Now you have a 4th overall pick and the 7th overall pick as your 2 bookend tackles. A little bit of a different coaching situation for Bobby down there than it was in Buffalo.
I think he'll be pretty happy. I know that's. I think he's the happiest guy in the building right now. Anytime you get an offensive lineman in the top 10, like the O-line coach, who's usually the one complaining the most, is now like you can shut him. Trust me, I know. You can usually keep him quiet for maybe a couple more days.
And again, it goes back to why Thibodeau at 5, because they probably loved Icky and Evan Neal, and they knew they're going to get one of them.
3 left. Yeah,
and this is where I think we're going to start to hear trade chatter.
Yeah,
after we get past those 7. Charles Cross is still out there.
So that was going to be my question. Now, if you think Cross is the last guy in that tier, if you're a team like New Orleans who desperately needs a guy there, and if you're Atlanta, I'd be taking every call I can get. I'd be trading back every opportunity I can. They've got a decent amount of picks in this draft, but if there's a team that has fewer long-term building blocks than the Giants, it's the Falcons.
Yeah.
So they need as many bites at this as they can possibly get.
Man, every time I look at the roster too, I'm like, oh man, that's right. The receivers are like free agents,
right?
A bunch of 6th and 7th round picks right there. So
fun conversation about the trades. The Falcons pick is in, so they will also be picking where they originally were supposed to.
Man,
so is this where we start the wide receiver run?
Yeah,
is this
pass catchers?
I mean, there's some debate there about do you start this rebuild with a pass catcher, another pass catcher? After that's where you went with the 1st round.
Oh, okay. Oh my God, that scared me real quick. I was like,
So for those of you listening on the podcast, Nate just got tricked by a graphic on the screen.
It reviewed the Matt Ryan trade, and I was like, wait, Colts traded up.
It's an embarrassing moment. That's when you're watching Red Zone and you think it's live.
Yeah,
that's what just happened to you.
That's exactly right.
I understand that logic, Nate or Dane, just because if we're talking about premium positions, but when you're completely starting over, I'm sure the Falcons were sitting there. I'm sure they had guys that they liked more than others. But if I were Terry Fontenot, I would steady heartbeat over the last hour or so because it doesn't matter who's on the board.
It's like Jermaine Johnson's the best player. Okay.
That's exactly right. Who's next on the board? We're just gonna pick that.
We like Hamilton still. Okay, cool. Let's go there. They can go truly best player available because they need it.
That's what Fontenot is. I mean, that's what he wants, the best player available. So Kyle Hamilton's in play here. Their top wide receivers in play here. Charles Cross is in play here. I mean,
London.
Okay, there we go.
Oh my God.
Your
guy Drake London goes to Atlanta.
Twin Towers.
Your guy, this is essentially Tim Duncan getting drafted by the Spurs.
Yeah,
that's what we're looking at right now.
Yes. Oh my God. Just throw it up.
You, for a long time, Nate, have had Drake London as your number 1 receiver in this class. What do you think separated him? Why do you think that he was just a cut above all the other guys?
Yeah, it's interesting to me because his biggest knock is speed, but everything else that he can do as far as being a ball winner, he can work inside and out. I have not made this comparison, but some people go, well, I could see him almost like a bigger, not as skilled version of Cooper Kupp. And I'm not comparing him to Cooper Kupp, but I'm saying as far as inside, outside versatility, and as far as like winning with some route running, because that's why I really liked him, was when I first put on the tape with him, you see 6'4", 215. You're like, I know what this guy's going to be. All right, Mike Williams, T. Higgins, come on down. Like, and I'm watching him. I see him sinking in his routes, running real. I thought he was going to be a basketball player where with the ball in his hands, he's not very tough. And he's trying to run over guys.
They're
Willing
just pitching
blocker.
him the ball. He's running wind back blocks where he's just coming across the formation. I was shocked at what his tape ultimately looked like.
Yep.
And now you have a receiver with inside-outside versatility. You have a tight end with inside-outside versatility. The type of stuff they can draw up is amazing.
It really
All right,
is.
it's time now to welcome our Giants writer from The Athletic, Dan Duggan, to walk us through the big picks that the Giants just made in the first round.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How you doing?
Hey,
how you feeling over there? Kayvon Thibodeau at 5.
Yeah, a little bit of a wild card, man. I don't think it's crazy that he was the 5th pick, but it just didn't feel like that's the way sort of everything was lining up coming into the draft. But I don't know if it was that Sauce Gardner going forward to the Jets, if that sort of maybe changed their plans. You know, we'll never get a true answer to that. But, yeah, it wasn't exactly what I was expecting coming into this, that's for sure.
When we were talking through it here today, we figured if they wanted the tackles and all 3 were still on the board, that if they liked 2 of them, that freed them up to potentially chase Thibodeau at 5 because they knew one of them would be on the board at 7. Do you think that that's probably in line with what they may have been thinking in the moment?
Yes, but I think, you know, this is the joys of doing this live. I think they're taking us to talk to Joe Shane and Brian Dable right now, so I'm going to have to jump out.
You do your thing, man. Guys. Sounds good. We appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, bye-bye.
The beauty of doing a live broadcast. Dan's going to talk to Joe Shane. That sounds great. And Nate, I totally agree. Again, I come to this process a little bit late, and you come into it when you turn on the tape with expectations of guys. And when I had heard people talk about Drake London, I just imagined him as this 6'4", stiff, sideline, vertical presence where he's just catching all these jump balls. And I turned on, I want to say it was the Utah game, and he's just doing crazy amounts of stuff. And I was like, this is not what I expected. Right. So, Dane, if we're talking about how he's better in some areas than we might have thought, do you think that the lack of long speed and the lack of testing is what may have scared some teams off? I mean, he went 8th overall. Right. Clearly, the Falcons weren't that scared.
No, it's if we want to point out the lack of vertical separation, that's a legitimate concern with him. There's a reason he did not run the 40-yard dash, and that's okay. You know, you don't have to be a 4.4 athlete to win out there with, you know, everything that Nate said with the size, just that short area fluidity that he has for a big man is really impressive. Yep. And the ultimate respect for a receiver is when you know where the ball is going every single time and you still can't stop it. That says something. And so if you're in the NFC South and now you have to cover both Kyle Pitts and Drake London, I mean, hey, maybe the happiest guy right now is Marcus Mariota because, hey, I'm reviving my career right now.
I was about to say, now if you're Atlanta, you didn't take a quarterback at 8. If you don't end up taking a quarterback here in the first couple of rounds, you walk into next year, the Falcons are going to be a bad football team. Yes. Let's just, by no fault of anyone in that building. I said this earlier this week. Arthur Smith could coach his ass off. He could be the best coach in the NFL this year. They could win 5 games. And I think that's a good thing if you're the Falcons. If you walk into next year's draft, you have the number 1 pick. You love CJ Stroud. Turn in the card. Let's go. Now you have a team, even if you don't have a ton of players. You have Jake Matthews, you have Chris Lindstrom, you have Kyle Pitts, and you have Drake London. Mm-hmm. Dropping a rookie quarterback into that situation on top of the extra 2 you have this year, the extra 3 you have this year, the $100 million or so in free agent money you'll have to throw around next spring. This is the makings of a fairly cushy situation, Nate, for whatever they ultimately end up doing at quarterback.
It's kind of fun when, I shouldn't say fun, but one benefit of being so bad is you kind of just, you can argue every player. And honestly, that's what the Falcons in the position that, like, that's the nice part. They go to Drake London. It's like, would I prefer they go with a lineman, or a defensive lineman, someone to build through the spine of the defense? Yes, of course. But just get a good player. And now you're just getting a guy that you can see very early on making an effect on the game. Last year, man, Arthur Smith, really coached his butt off. I'm working on swearing, so really coached his butt off. And but he had Cordero Patterson and Kyle Pitts, a rookie tight end, and a journeyman gadget running back now as his best receivers. Like in that, so it makes a lot more sense to just get, hey, let's actually get some talent there. Okay, yeah, we have Marcus right now at quarterback. Okay, but we're not competing, so we don't really need these other spots. And then, like you said, they still have ammo next year. They can do a lot of interesting things where there's other gaps, they can find them.
Well, and Arthur Smith in Tennessee had that big body receiver with AJ Brown.
Yes.
And going right back to that, having that physical presence who is not only a physical presence, but that is what he does. And so that size, and this Drake London's just, he's even a better athlete than AJ Brown is, I think. Maybe not long speed, but some of the short area stuff. So, which is saying a lot because AJ Brown's developed into a very true number one receiver. Yep. And Nate, what's cool to me is that not only are the body types similar in some of the ways that you can deploy them, but the Titans had such a specific plan for AJ Brown his rookie year. When you think about all of the yak opportunities that they created for him, and they built the whole plane out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
the same route over
tunnel screens and slants and just understanding, all right, this is what he does well. Yep. This is what I'm going to do with him. And I think the specificity when it comes to that with your pass catchers, and they did a lot of stuff with Kyle Pitts like that last year.
Yes.
Where there's an imagination to the way that they're deploying somebody that has a specific sort of skill set. And I think that you could probably say the same thing about Drake London, and that's why this is exciting.
They were going 22 personnel. I remember against the Bucs, a fullback, a running back, 2 tight ends, and they had Pitts out as like the X receiver. So basically they're making it like a 2 receiver formation. And so now you get Drake London, who's a willing blocker with good size. Oh, there's a trade.
That's the Russell Wilson trade.
God, I'm doing this because I really want. I just see trade flash up there, so I know. And I was like, oh, so I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not even going to react to him anymore. But it's now when you get an actual receiver with size. So say they're still in that same personnel group in 22. Now we got Kyle Pitts and Drake London. We can move them wherever we want with the formation, and Patterson, who has his versatility as well, which is like, it's so funny because that used to be a negative about him. It's like he couldn't stick anywhere, and then now he is. Like now he actually, like, everybody wants Patterson. Just a weird career for him. But that's what the Falcons are going to do. It's going to be kind of like a weird, in a good way, body types that they can go inside and out versatility with all of them.
The Seahawks pick is in at 9 here.
Speaking of rebuilding teams.
Don't tell them.
I was going to say,
don't tell them that.
Yeah, it matters on perspective, I guess.
I want to read off the current wide receivers on the Atlanta Falcons before making the Drake London pick. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Auden Tate, Demir Bird, Olamide Zaccheaus, Kadero Hodge, Frank Darby were the top 5
Drake
receivers.
London.
And now Drake London's in there. Again, when you're starting over, it doesn't really matter who they were before, but it does make it look a little bit better when now Drake London is in the mix there. Yes. If we were listing off needs for the Falcons, which is kind of a futile exercise, receiver probably was number 1.
I'm fine with Drake London getting 140 targets. Then
why the heck not?
Frank Darby.
Seahawks here at number 9.
No brainer.
Charles Cross. So you say no brainer. You just think tier, need, everything else just align for the Seahawks in this moment with Cross?
Can you tell me the left tackle for the Seahawks right now?
Stone Forsythe.
There you go.
I can do it. Come on now.
Yeah. Who I actually like coming out of Florida a couple years ago. But Charles Cross, no doubt, an upgrade. Whoever's at quarterback, this is good news for him. Charles Cross, I think while you do worry about maybe some of the power elements of his game, especially in the run game, the movement skills, the hands, he's a redshirt sophomore coming out, still a young player, but you love not only the upside, but what he is right now. It's really encouraging. So I think the Seahawks are pretty happy they get him here at 9.
Yeah, I think this is ideal for them.
You're a Cross guy.
Love him. Yeah. I really do. And both points that Dane just brought, the upside and downside for him. I haven't really watched a lot of left tackles as like polished as a technician as him. And his eyes are very good. Like as far as understanding where games are coming from. The Alabama game was really fun to watch because they're bringing a linebacker and they're twisting the defensive lineman with him, and Cross is reacting before the twist even happens. Because he understands. He's like, I've watched this on film. I understand this. So all that polish was so incredible to watch from a redshirt sophomore at left tackle who has when I watched him had 15 career starts at that point. And so that's where it's like, this is a true left tackle. And like you said, he's not the road grading, in the run game type of player, but it almost gets back to the original discussion we had about how many left tackles are those. It's more of the shield or pass protecting type. That's what you're the blind side.
When I was watching Cross and Neal, the thing that jumped out to me, the gap between them, and this is just my couple games watching it, Neal was not very quick to react to a lot of stunts. He would commit to one way. But his change of direction for a guy that has his physical profile and testing ability is not the same as a guy like Cross.
Yeah.
The awareness and his ability to kind of pick that stuff up. And as we transition to a league where it's chaos, we are beyond this world where 4 guys will line up. That's where they're coming from.
Right.
That's over. Those days are done.
Yep.
It's pass rush by committee. It's multiple fronts, tons of twists, tons of stunts, overload fronts.
Yep.
Having somebody that has that level of awareness, Dane, and the ability to kind of sort through that stuff almost feels more important now than it's really ever been at that position.
And not only the mental, but the physical to match.
Yeah.
Like, some guys have the physical ability, the quickness, but they don't have maybe the mental. Some guys have the mental where they can see it happening, but they don't react in real time because their feet can't catch up to their eyes.
Yep.
So this guy has both, no question. The fluidity that he plays with, the hips, really impressive. And I think there is, coming from that scheme, an air raid. He 79% of his snaps in college were as a pass blocker. That's a high number. That there's a little bit of worry there, but
it's not the ground raid.
Yeah,
like
you said though, you want first and foremost, what can you do as a pass blocker? And this guy has it. And there's a lot of encouraging, to a point where our good friend of the show, Brandon Thorne, talking to him multiple times about Nate. We got to trade.
I know. I bit my tongue. I'm actually biting my tongue.
Talking to Brandon Thorne about multiple times throughout the process. Man, should Charles Cross be our OT1? It was a debate because you could make the case because of how good he was as a pass blocker.
Do you think the Andre Dillard side of this is maybe what had that in the back of your mind? We're like, should we lean too hard into that? He's the best pass protector in the draft with some of the scheme concerns, with some of the other concerns.
Regardless if we feel that way, I know I talked to several in the NFL that felt that way.
Yeah.
Andre Dillard's name came up when you talk to people about Charles Cross. So, regardless of what we think, that's something that NFL teams thought was real and warranted or not. It is something that came up with the Charles Cross conversation.
That was when I first put him on. That's why I packed my head. We always have that image in your head, what you think they're going to be. And it was interesting to me. I thought Mississippi State and what Mike Leach did now that he's in the SEC after a couple of years, he kind of tightened the splits, not a ton. It's still pretty wide as far as the offensive line split. But when I heard the Dillard, I don't know about the air raid left tackles, it was like, they've changed it a little bit because Mike Leach realized, I'm going against the SEC defenses every week. I can't be having these huge wide lanes for these 4-4 D tackles that could just split them. So I think that's where I had a little less hesitancy with watching Cross. And also, like you just brought up too, is that his physical traits were so interesting to me. 34.5-inch arms. He had the longest arms of these top 3 tackles. As his testing, 40 time actually kind of comes up for tackles as far as kind of like a nice, correlates to success. He was a 4.95 guy. Same with Icky, and also his short shuttle and stuff, like all had good testing numbers. So it's a nice, interesting package. That's why I'm excited about him.
Just get their playmaker.
Yeah. That seemed like they were desperate for him. It seemed like it really did.
I do think this was maybe a tough pick for them between Jermaine Johnson and getting that pass rusher or going with the playmaker, but don't fault them at all for going with Garrett Wilson here. I mean, to me, he was my top receiver in this draft. And honestly, he was from the start. I really never wavered or thought to waver because he was clearly my top guy. And it just comes down to getting open before and after the catch. He does both. Yep. You wish he were a little bit bigger. He doesn't have.
He plays big though.
He does.
Yeah. He's catching range.
Playing through contact. That catch radius that he has. The focus. Big time basketball player in high school, and he credits that the hand-eye coordination, the reflexes. You see that with the way he plays. Big fan of Garrett Wilson, the way that he can. He makes the playbook come alive. He really does.
Yeah.
And we saw it at Ohio State with, this explosive offense. Now really excited to see what this means for Zach Wilson. Give him a talent like that.
It's fun synergy too now with their receiver room too. I really like it. With Elijah Moore, who I'm high on. Elijah is not amazing with the ball in his hands. He's more, I keep comparing him to Brandon Cooks because that's kind of just what he is. He's a smaller traditional receiver, almost like, but he's competitive and that's why he plays big. Now they get the guy that can have some juice after the catch. And like you said, it's their playmaker. So now you get those two, Corey Davis, who, probably, but that's another different type. He's more of a bigger body guy, physical
if you
guy.
want to play, if you want to live in 11 personnel and you want to play Davis in the slot, and you want to use him to be digging people out and use him as a blocker.
It's so really funny how these roles have changed now in the NFL.
Absolutely. Because
Wilson would have been a slot before.
You would look at Wilson or Moore 5 years ago and like slot receiver. That's what he is. And now it's so funny because I don't know the percentages on it off the top of my head, but the world that Mike LaFleur comes from is not an 11 personnel world. But now you have 3 guys that you've devoted real resources to. Elijah Moore was a top 35 pick. You just drafted a guy 10th overall. Corey Davis got a real contract in free agency. But they also have Uzama. They have Tyler Conklin. I don't know how it's going to end up working, but there are a lot of different ways you can deploy these guys. And even without the offensive tackle, Dane, in the first round or in the top 10, you still have Becton if it works out. You still have Fant. You went out and signed Laken Tomlinson in free agency. You went out and drafted Elijah Vera Tucker in the first round. And we could talk about this as gets a little bit closer. I keep thinking about Linderbaum to them. If he's there at the top of the second round,
we got to trade.
This one is real time, Nate. This one is real time.
Moved up. They probably
Penning.
Okay.
So now, so that's the thing. So if we always thought the cross was potential for the Saints, where they were going to be really aggressive and try to get up into that top 8-9 range to go get a Charles Cross, they didn't. Do you think if this is for Trevor Penning, it's a little bit aggressive?
I don't think they're trading to 2 1s. I think this is a 2nd and a 1. I don't know. We haven't seen details yet. 2 1 seems a lot to move up for 5 spots, 16 and 19. So this is probably their 2nd and a 1, which is still aggressive, but that was a plan all along. They wanted to get their tackle. And I bet you that they made an aggressive offer to the Giants, to Atlanta, to Seattle. But I think those teams were comfortable drafting who they did at those spots. So this is their first spot where they felt like, okay, this is where we can go get. Not assuming it's a tackle. Any other positions come to mind? Olave?
We just had a run on receiver.
We just talked about that. Yeah, at the top of the show.
Got taken.
When's that receiver run going to start?
It's more about, do you think that the drop off in tier between Cross and Penning is big enough that making this move up the draft, even for an extra 2nd round pick, is a product more of the scarcity and desperation that's happened because of the way the draft is unfolded?
Nate, I'll be interested to hear what you say, but in a big way.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Bernard Raymond. I like Tyler Smith for what they are. They're 2nd round players.
They are.
I mean, they're players that if I'm taking them in the first round, I'm not feeling very confident about that. Now, Trevor Penning, he has his warts too, but a guy that big, 6'7", 325, the athleticism he plays with, the best 10-yard split of any offensive lineman at the combine, the length that he plays with, the tenacity. There's a lot of selling points with Trevor Penning. So
when this is Malik Willis, none of it's going to matter.
Right. So. Hey, it's don't rule anything out.
I know.
We talked about, where's that first quarterback going to go? Probably a product of a trade somehow, some way. So, this is fascinating. The Saints they always do this. They get aggressive, they trade up, and sometimes it's not for the player that maybe we thought. So,
I mean, it doesn't take very long to go back and think about 2018 when we all assumed it was Lamar Jackson. It was Marcus Davenport.
Exactly.
So
right.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I think that this has happened in some other sports where some of the analytically inclined conversations push the sport toward uniformity. And often it's with the way that the game is played. Basketball is like this, and I think baseball suffer from it as well. The Saints have looked at all of the evidence over the last 10 years that has come out about how you do this process. And they've said, you know what? We don't really care. We are going to try to push this as far as we can. And I kind of love it. I mean, it is just an organizational philosophy, Dane, that they have leaned into kind of unabashedly.
Yeah. And you know what? They compete every year. So who are we to say that's not the right way to go about it, And so we have the trade details. It's 16, their 3rd rounder, and a 4th rounder. Yeah. So they don't even have to give up that second rounder.
Yep.
So I mean,
first and a 2nd still. So
exactly. They're going to make another 3 picks here in the top 60. And that's if this is the tackle, if this is the receiver, I mean, any other positions between those two besides
those are the needs?
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Those are the needs.
But if you're trading up, it's for a player. It's not for a position. So is there a player? Kyle Hamilton. Is there another player here?
That was the other one I was thinking of
that might intrigue you at this point.
So they did lose about 2,000 snaps at safety between Malcolm Jenkins and Marcus Williams leaving the team. Malcolm Jenkins retiring, Williams leaving in free agency. Obviously, they did sign Marcus May. But now you think about how many times they've liked to play 3 safeties at the same time. CGJ is in that mix. They don't have that flexibility on the back end that they've had in years past. PJ Williams is still there, but they brought him back on a 1-year deal. They brought Bradley Roby back. There aren't a ton of holes on defense. I think on defense for them, it would be more about succession plans, guys that might be aging at certain positions, what they want to do contractually with a Marcus Davenport going forward. But if we're thinking about where the holes are on this roster, and if you think about the justification of the aggressiveness based on the timeline, where you think, all right, we can be aggressive because we're looking at the landscape of the NFC. We don't see anybody we're truly scared of, and we only have a couple needs. Those needs are tackle and receiver.
Let's put it this way: if you're the Bucs, who do you not want to see here?
Olave.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that's what I would say.
Jameson Williams.
Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
I think it's probably one of those two guys.
Yeah.
That's the wrong answer, by the way. It's the guy I'd want to see least if I were the Bucs is the correct tackle. I just don't know if the correct tackle is left after that teardrop after the first three guys, right?
And you don't feel like you would have to move up for Penning. Like I feel like that could have fallen to them where they were taking with those first two picks.
What if it is Jameson Williams? You think about synergy with receiving course, by the way. Putting Michael Thomas with Jameson Williams.
My favorite wide receiver team fit in the first round was Jameson Williams in New Orleans.
Well, the problem with New Orleans is they don't have a quarterback who likes to push it. So if they don't, that speed is wasted on Jameis Winston.
Yeah, who's going to win out? Is it Dennis Allen wanting his safety so he can do all the fun packages and fun blitz looks, or is it going to be the speed? And that's the thing. I could argue for any of them, and even Olave. Like it's a different blending. Well, route running stuff, but just maybe a different type than Michael Thomas is too. So that's fun as well. I mean,
the last receiver that the Saints drafted in the first round was Brandon Cooks, correct?
Yeah.
So you think about where they've really spent big at that position. Yeah, that was speed. I mean, his production at Oregon State was absolutely insane. He was he still tested very well.
100%.
He was the whole offense there. It was so funny too. Just a side story, but watching Brandon Cooks going from Oregon State and then his first year at the Saints, and you can see Sean Payton was so excited to use all the jet sweep stuff that he took from Mike Riley's offense. He was like, I love this. I'm using all of this.
I'm interested in how that process has changed without Sean Payton there. There's no way for us to know, but what types of players they would want. Because if you talk to people there for years, it was a absolute prerequisite on offense. You had to be smart. You had to clear a certain marker because what it was like to play for Sean Payton. And it's the density of the offense. It's one of the most complex offenses in football, but also just specificity of landmarks, all these different things.
Even Kamara is one of the smartest backs in the league. That makes so much sense.
So, I mean, that's when you have a coach, and that's why I think some of the excitement about the Saints, I feel like, is a tiny bit misguided, just because when you have a coach with that sort of presence in your personnel department, in the ways you make decisions, the way that you operate, the world after that guy, it's an uncertain world. They're walking into a wilderness here, even if there is a decent amount of continuity.
I wonder if they have him on speed dial. You're watching Sean, who you like? Just want to make sure. So,
I'm interested in Washington thinking that we should move down and get more picks. That's the correct way to see where they are and who they are. Yeah. But I'm a little bit surprised that a team that wants $28 million of Carson Wentz because we need a quarterback right now wants to move down in this situation.
Well, I think we'll see what this pick is, but I know they like Chris Olave quite a bit. Do they feel like they can get Olave at pick 16? I don't know. Maybe he's the pick right now. Right. I guess we're about to find out.
Interesting collection of people here. We have Austin Eckler and Tony Gonzalez while picking for. It was supposed to be Washington, and now it's New Orleans. So listen, both wonderful humans. I'm glad they're here. But,
right. Oh man. Oh, they're promoting Thursday Night Football. Is that what they're doing here? Got it.
Dane, do you think that if you're stacking up the receivers right now, what would you do? Just in a vacuum, even independent of need. Do you think that Olave is that guy, or would you rather have Jameson Williams?
I'd rather have Jameson. I think the speed is special, and going back to what this team wants to be on offense, what we think they want to be, I'm going with the speed, even though we don't know when Jameson Williams will be back on the field. Is it October? Is it November? I'm still betting on that speed.
The pick is in for New Orleans, so we'll see what happens here in a second. I mean, we got a couple teams after this with Minnesota that I'm fascinated to see what they do. Houston, obviously, we talked about them a ton early on, just the blank slate that they are. But with the Saints, we should have seen something like this coming. We didn't know when it was going to happen. There it is. That's unfortunate. He is not going 39th overall anymore, apparently.
The Saints never draft Ohio State players.
No,
never. I didn't even think about that. I did not even think about that. That connection point makes a ton of sense. Nate, you Chris Olave does not necessarily align with the types of receivers you typically like. You're a Drake London guy.
Yes.
But your top 2 receivers in this draft were Drake London and Chris Olave.
Yep.
Why would you make an exception specifically for you, for a guy like Olave? Why, even if he didn't check typical boxes, did you fall in love with him a little bit?
Because it's so how he wins is so easily translatable as a route runner and just his ball skills and everything. He is so polished that it's kind of just in the same way that we're talking about Drake London, we're talking about other guys and polished, even like a Charles Cross at left tackle. But with Olave, it's like every route they ran, he's running advanced red zone routes as a junior in college, a sophomore in college, really. He's a senior this past year. Here's one right now. This is literally what I was thinking of. Those routes are like, those are ones that you say for like Travis Kelce in the red zone, Michael Crabtree in the red zone. Those guys that have like really good feel. His yards after the catch, he's more of a splitter. That's like his one knock. But man, it's just that you can easily see this guy playing Z receiver for 12 years, 14 years, and being every opponent in the NFC South going like, oh, there he is catching another first down on an out route.
He's so good at finding the blind spots.
Yeah, and that's the type of stuff that you just can't teach.
No.
You watch him play, and he just has so many little nuances of the position that you either have it or you don't. You either understand that feel and those just little tiny intricacies, or you don't.
You could see it as a freshman at Ohio State. I mean, it was natural to him.
Yeah. By the way, the Lions just moved up from 32 to 12.
Okay.
Now, so what do we think here?
Quarterback.
It has to be, right?
I mean, you don't make a move like, unless they
love Kyle Hamilton.
It's not Jermaine Johnson after drafting Hutchinson. So, I mean, it could be Jameson. They need a receiver bad.
Yeah. They absolutely need an outside receiver.
Jameson would be great there. I mean,
we talked about, maybe the Chiefs making that big move to get the receiver.
Yeah.
Maybe the Lions,
That. Wow.
So the deal as we're looking at it right now, the Lions get 12 and 48. They give up 32, 34, and 66. That's math I cannot do. I need somebody to spin a draft chart at me, but it's an aggressive move no matter how you slice it.
That's not that bad.
No. Also, getting that 48 back.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all.
Easier pill to swallow there. Well, they're pretty happy. That looks like a quarterback standing.
Yeah.
I mean, if it is a quarterback, we had this discussion coming into it. Is 32 the potential spot? But if you like your guy, and this is one of those moments where you don't sit there. You don't sit there with the way the draft is unfolded. If they love a Pickett or if they love a Willis, we're about to find out if that's the answer. But I can understand wanting to be aggressive in this moment.
Mac Jones going to the Patriots last year, where the Patriots just sat there and waited. That's the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
You have to go get Justin Fields. You have to go get your quarterback.
Mahomes,
be aggressive. Absolutely. Deshaun Watson. Yeah, exactly.
Josh Allen even. They had to bump up for him.
Mitchell Trubisky.
And if you look at it, I mean, I can understand wanting to do it at 12 because if you're worried that a team like Pittsburgh might try to come up at 13 with a Houston team that could potentially want to trade down, do you think this is the spot you have to get to make this happen? I totally get that.
Well, because you're worried about Pittsburgh moving up a little bit. To get their guy, whoever that may be. So,
and Houston at 13, I think, is a natural partner to do that, right?
Yes.
So if you think that, we need to jump them. And for Minnesota needs players. Minnesota isn't one guy away, even though their offseason moves might lend you to believe.
First-year general manager, first-year head coach, starting a new regime. Even though they're contenders and they're ready to go, compete for the NFC North, absolutely.
Okay. So we'll see what happens here. But if it's not a quarterback, you talked about receiver being a need for this team. They don't have any outside receivers really on this roster after the season ends. They signed DJ Chark to a 1-year contract. So they do have some vertical stretch for this season. But other than that, I mean, this is a receiver room that's very much in flux for whoever their quarterback might end up being if a quarterback is not the pick here.
Yeah. And also just like, Amon-Ra St. Brown had a nice year for them. And like a guy like Jameson Williams, it makes sense because just his skill set, well, it's different from a lot of guys because he's so freaking fast. But it's like now that opens up for everything else for the other guys. That's the gravity that a speed receiver can bring. And that's what Jameson Williams truly can do. And also yards after the catch, he's great with the ball in his hands. He's a great returner as well. So even if Jared Goff doesn't push the ball, he can throw underneath and boom, Jameson can take to the house.
Here we go.
The Vikings have traded the 12th pick to the Detroit Lions.
I'm on edge of my seat.
I know this is in the 2022 NFL Draft. The Detroit Lions select Jameson Williams, wide receiver, Alabama.
So Dane, so if it's not a quarterback, the idea of the Lions trading up for Williams, this is that run on receivers that's happening.
Yeah.
Where now that you see Olave go and you saw Drake London go, do they feel like we need to go up and get this, or we're going to miss out on that tier of player at that position?
4 of the last 5 picks have been receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what we thought was going to happen. It's just, when was it going to happen? What was the order going to be? We're going to see some trade. We saw 2 trades now back to back. And we've actually got another trade here coming up with the Eagles moved to 13. But with Jameson, I mean, exactly what you said, a perfect compliment to a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. When is he going to be ready? You know what, for the Lions, it doesn't really matter. I mean, if he's not ready until Halloween, so be it.
He's walking up on the stage right now.
Yeah.
So he's doing okay. After
not limping.
Guess what? If the Lions win 4 games this year and they play hard and show some spunk, great. Because they're going to be in the exact same position Atlanta's in. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You got Jameson Williams now. You have an offensive line that you already feel pretty good about after drafting Penei Sewell last year and everybody else that they have. Whatever their quarterback plan ends up being, waiting until 2023 to figure that out while you're paying Jared Goff $30 million, that's okay.
There are about 15 teams that are going to draft CJ Stroud next year.
Listen, you joke about that, but the Falcons and the Lions, those teams are going to be bad enough where they could potentially draft CJ Stroud, and the Lions have an extra first-round pick next year.
Yep.
So let's say the Jags get the number 1 pick again next season, which could happen, and they have Trevor Lawrence, and the Lions are at 2. You can make that little swap if you want to, whatever it needs to end up happening.
How about 3 Ohio State receivers going back to back to back? I mean, Jameson Williams, he spent a little bit of time in Alabama, but he was in Ohio State for a couple of years. So it's amazing what that wide receiver room looked like in Columbus for a little bit there.
Hey, Big Ten Conference. That's what we produce. We produce receivers. That's what we do.
John Dotson's coming up pretty soon. Yeah,
I know. It's the Big Ten Conference. That's where you want to see receivers. That's where you go.
We got the Eagles are here now, picking on the clock at 13. They moved up with the Texans, so they give up 15. So they wanted to get in front of Baltimore. Basically, what this comes down to.
Yep.
So is this Jordan Davis?
Jordan Davis. Would be
how he loves his big defensive linemen.
And the Eagles were rumored as a receiver candidate as one of one. So if they're setting pat, and it looks like maybe this crop of guys, this tier of guys for them. And I could see defensive linemen really making sense.
I know they
need
wanted
front 7 help.
Yeah, well, and I know they were looking at corners as well. I don't know that they're moving up for McDuffie. Maybe they still think they can get him, with their second first rounder. But this feels like Jordan Davis. You get ahead of Baltimore, but
makes a lot more sense.
If you're going to bet on a team to move up, Saints were the team. Second team, probably the Eagles. I mean, with those 2 first rounders, multiple picks later on, they go up to get their guy.
And I mean, Jordan Davis, if you look at the Eagles, you think, well, they have defensive linemen, but Fletcher Cox is back on that 1-year deal.
Yeah.
I mean, they're more in flux at that position than you might think. And honestly, Jordan Davis and Javon Hargrave, you're worried about Jordan Davis having juice as a pass rusher.
Yeah.
If you have the defensive tackle outside of Aaron Donald, arguably with the most pass rushing juice in the league, it's a little easier to live with Jordan Davis being a one-dimensional player in his career.
Your gap shooter and your plugger. Perfect.
Yep.
There you go.
Traditional roles. It's great. You gotta love that. But they, their defense last year, and that was like a big issue with them. It was just in the front 7. They're trying to play too high, and it was just always they just couldn't do it. They just didn't have the horses up front to last for 60 plays. I remember they were playing the 49ers early in the year, and it wasn't even a great game from the 49ers, but the Eagles on defense, they just couldn't do anything against the run game. It was almost comical. So that's why, I could really see them going for Davis here. And this is kind of the slot where he was predicted to go. So it makes a lot of sense.
I'm a little bit disappointed that he might not go to Baltimore. The idea of Jordan Davis going to Baltimore is almost too beautiful to me. Just imagining him in the uniform and all the ass kickers they've had on their defensive line over the years, him playing next to Calais Campbell. Yeah. I mean, everything about it. Listen, the idea of dropping Jordan Davis in with Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, this is how the Eagles think. If it is Jordan Davis, it would be the most Eagles pick possible, because even as you have all these shiny corners and a Kyle Hamilton and everything else on the board, Howie believes in certain things.
Yeah,
and what he believes in is that this is how you build a football team. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if that's what it's for.
My last 3 mock drafts, I put Jordan Davis at 15 to the Eagles. And I overlooked the fact, on purpose that, he maybe go to Baltimore, because I knew he was just perfect fit with Howie Roseman at 15. But, and Howie knows that. So move up to 13. they only gave up, what, a couple fourth rounders, I believe?
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't
So-
A fifth rounder that they didn't even own
Yeah.
before. It was actually something they got from Arizona, I believe, the Zach Ertz
they
trade.
they leased it.
Yeah. They leased the fifth round pick for the Zach
Yeah.
Ertz deal. And that's the Eagles are obviously a very analytically forward organization. They understand a lot of, the ways that certain positional value trends and picks and everything else, how it should inform decision making. But they're aggressive both ways.
Mhm.
They'll move up or down, not huge, but they will absolutely make little tiny vacillations throughout the draft that they feel put them in better positions.
And I don't think Jordan Davis is I don't think he is a one-dimensional player. I mean, I think that
That was a pessimistic viewpoint.
No,
me.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And one, especially his first year. It'll take time for him to develop as more of a pass rusher, as that guy that will attack gaps. But pound for pound, one of the most unique athletes we've ever seen come into the NFL. And I think that they look at that upside and what he could be, and that he's not just that, two-gapping nose. I mean, he can be a guy you line up as a gap shooter and give you a little bit of push.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, good luck blocking this guy. He's firing all cylinders going forward. I mean, I've been a little skeptical about the snap count and all that, but I certainly get why a team's going to bet on a guy like Jordan Davis, because again, at worst, you're getting a dominant run defender and a guy that is going to give you a little bit more as a pass rusher.
Yeah, and offensive lines want to get more pass protection heavy, so they're more athletic and smaller. Okay, let's zag a little bit and get a guy that just
Even
pushes
talking
them
about
around.
the two high considerations you were
Yep.
bringing up. I mean, if you want to play like that, this is the type of guy that feels more value. Even if he's not going to get you 8 sacks or 6 sacks, he has pass defense value if he can allow you to play certain coverages on the back end. And I think more and more teams are thinking about that. Is it worth spending a first round pick on? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But when that first round pick is literally built like no one else on planet Earth, and you can get him at 13 and not 5, I think these are all the things you gotta kind of start thinking about.
And also, yeah, like you're saying, with the two high defenses, you get Davis there, it saves a body in the box. And then also what the argument is okay, he might not bring the juice on third down or passing downs, but it's really nice that every single time the other offense is 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, because they couldn't do anything on first and second down in the run game. It's the argument for him is Vita Vea. Like that, that is the argument for Jordan Davis, is he can have that effect, even if they're not exactly the same type of player. But that is the glass half full, prediction for him, or what he can do for your defense.
No, that's a good way to frame it.
With these picks, and this is something that, again, an analytically forward franchise told me last year when they were thinking about draft pick trades. If you start getting past the top 100, these become a little bit like monopoly money. And when you start trading top 100 picks to move up, that's often bad process. But the Eagles are giving away 2/5 and things like that. When that is part of it's not as big of a deal to me. I'm more okay with that than I am with a team trading a future second to move back from the third round back into the second round, stuff like that.
We thought we might see some trades in the top 10. We get no trades, and then 11, 12, 13, all teams moving up. So this is what we were expecting. This is where a little bit of that chaos comes in, the unpredictable nature of the draft, which we love so much.
Yeah, it's funny. And you can see, I just saw the clock and said Texans are on the clock, even though we're waiting for the Eagles pick. And it's just funny being in the league sometimes too, is because you have your own internal communicator and stuff. So I just remember those days too. It's like knowing we're on pick 20 and then you look at TV and they're on pick 14.
Right. It's backlogged a little.
Yeah. From when the announcement's happening. And I think that's what's going on right now.
It would just be so interesting when you have a guy like Kyle Hamilton, you think about the needs that the Eagles have and how clear it is for them to, if they could just drop him in, it would make sense, like in terms of their defense and the guys they have on the roster. But again, this is just a team that is so steadfast in the way that it sees positional value, and it operates according to those principles. I'd be surprised if it was a safety, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if it were Jordan Davis. And I think that really speaks to who the Eagles are and the ways that they operate.
Yeah. And we're going to spend all this time talking Jordan Davis, and it's going to be like
hey,
Jahan Dotson.
Jermaine Johnson's still out there,
Yes.
The pass rusher. So, I mean, Jordan, because again, it's who do you have to jump Baltimore for?
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
With the 13th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Jordan Davis.
There it is.
Nope. Makes sense.
Great call by you, Dan.
Yeah,
I mean,
makes
it's
a ton of sense.
It would have been surprised if it were for anybody else.
Right.
Just because if you're thinking about player tiers and guys available, you can make an argument for Kyle Hamilton probably, but not for this team.
Right.
Maybe for some other teams, but the Eagles just aren't going to value him in the same way that another franchise might.
And meanwhile, if you're Baltimore, you're a little disappointed here. I mean, this is I think there's a good chance it could have gone Jordan Davis at 14, and so all of a sudden, maybe option A is off the table. You're going to option B, which that makes things interesting.
Well, and we focused a lot on our show, Robert, for worse, about the Chargers and like just all the stuff they, especially last year. But we talked, that was
for better, by the way.
Yeah, for better. But that was everyone's, including mine. Oh my God, this is Jordan Davis at 17 to the Chargers. Oh my God, team fit, need, all that stuff. But other teams play the same defense. Like other teams play that type of other teams like this skill set, not just
Jonathan Gannon and Brand Staley are best friends.
Yes. So that's why when a lot of teams are like, well, he's going to the Chargers, like, yeah, other teams are going to value what he brings to them. So it makes a ton of sense that the Eagles value his skill set as well.
It really is amazing, I think, what that kind of guy can do, just unlock everything. And even if, again, he doesn't have that pass rush value, the way that every other aspect of your defense can change because the math starts to flip, I think is just really important to take into consideration here. And that's why it makes sense. I mean, beyond what we've seen from the Eagles in years past, there's both a history there and schematically, I think that there's an alignment that I should have probably thought more about it before this draft happened, that Jordan Davis to the Eagles actually did make a lot of sense.
You worry a little bit about the weight, but it was a positive sign that, okay, he was 341 at the combine. What was at the pro day? 341.
Okay.
That's positive sign.
Blown back up.
Right, exactly. A lot of these players, they slim down so they could run real fast, and then they, take the foot off the pedal a little bit and add 10 pounds. So the fact that he stayed at 341, a small win that gives you a little bit of encouragement that, he can monitor the weight, stay at something manageable, because you don't want him playing at 365 consistently like you did a lot of times at Georgia.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to break down the Ravens pick at 14.
Now, our next partner is a pretty cool product. Let's talk about Athletic Greens. If you're looking to get better gut health, more energy, or a stronger immune system in a really easy, natural way, you've got to check out Athletic Greens. I'm sure you'll all agree that most of us aren't huge fans of taking a bunch of pills or vitamins in the morning. But with Athletic Greens, you can get rid of all those extra vitamin bottles and finally make some room in your cabinet. Athletic Greens is an all-in-one solution that actually tastes good, so you'll really enjoy getting your daily vitamins. I love the taste. It's very pleasant. It's got a little tropical flavor to it. I make it every single morning when I'm brewing my coffee. It takes 30 seconds, and it's just such a great way to integrate a healthy habit into your day. So what is Athletic Greens? With one delicious scoop, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to help look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/maze. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/maze to take ownership over your health and pick up your ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Guys, I care about all of you that listen to this show, each and every one of you. I want you to feel confident and prioritize your health, your relationships, your sense of well-being, everything that drives how you're feeling about yourself. And if you're ready to do that for yourself, start with Roman. Roman offers a discreet process from start to finish, so you don't have to worry about clandestinely getting some boxes or going into a doctor's office, anything that might be something that makes you a little bit uncomfortable. Both the prescriptions and the over-the-counter treatments from Roman are available. They're available with fast, free shipping, so you don't have to wait to start fighting your hair loss. They're science-backed treatments that are proven to help slow or stop hair loss and, in some cases, even regrow hair. This is a way to get your confidence back if you're dealing with hair loss. Walk into a room feeling your best and trying to chase the best version of yourself. Get more confidence from the top down with Roman. Go to GetRoman.com/maze today. If approved, you can treat your hair loss for as low as $20 a month. That's GetRoman.com/maze.
All right, we're back. The Ravens pick is in. Dane, what do you think they're doing here?
Well,
With Jordan Davis off the board.
Yeah.
Where are you going if you're Baltimore?
I went Trevor Penning in my mock. Get that physical right tackle that we know they could use. But, I mean, you look at best available, Jermaine Johnson's still out there. Kyle Hamilton's still out there. There's a few impact defensive players. The Ravens, I mean, we know how much they value defense and guys that can really change things on that side of the ball. So with Jermaine Johnson and Kyle Hamilton out there, there's a good chance it could be one of those two players as well.
I thought it was really interesting looking at, we talked about a little bit with Wink Martindale, but you think about the Ravens' identity defensively over the last few years. Blitzing, man coverage. That's what we've come to expect from Baltimore. But over the last season, little changes. So 2019, 2020, fourth in man coverage rate. 46% in 2019, 45% in 2020. This season, down to 6th in the NFL, but only 34%. 10% drop off from the previous season. Blitz rate, 2019, first in the NFL, 50%. 2020, 42.5% first in the league. 2021, 28.4%, down to 7th in the NFL. So you have this kind of shifting philosophy where we're not playing as much man coverage. Maybe we're going to play a little bit more zone. And does a guy like Kyle Hamilton, who the Ravens just picked, Nate, fit into that kind of shifting philosophy potentially?
Yeah, and I think they realize, oh my God, finding as many corners as we can is really
difficult.
Hard. It's a really hard proposition. But what Hamilton does is he has some limitations. He's another guy that has limitations with the long speed stuff, but he's so smart and so aware and versatile. And that matters now. Being able to play those different spots really
it's him
matters.
And Marcus Williams back there.
Yes.
They're going to wreck it.
Yes. And so now if you do want to, even if they do want to say blitz heavy, or if they want to tape it down, they want to use him how they want to use him, if that makes sense. It sounds so basic, but like now you don't have that limitation going, we don't trust this guy to read the game. We don't trust this guy to cover in the slot. Now they can do those things. They got another body for it.
I didn't look at every mock draft on the internet, but Baltimore and Kyle Hamilton was not a pairing you really saw that often.
No.
So that's interesting. This is strictly best player available. When you look at the Ravens, you look at their depth chart where they could have gone. I mean, they've got Chuck Clark on the roster, a safety who's, obviously
he's nice.
But yeah, exactly. Safety wasn't necessarily at the top of the priority list where they had to go, but best available, Kyle Hamilton. It's hard to pass on him.
Well, if you look at Chuck Clark, I mean, Chuck Clark has spent a ton of time the last few years playing in the box.
In the box,
so
right?
2021, 300 of his 1,000 snaps came in the box. Does that ratio shift even more with Kyle Hamilton now back there? And Marcus Williams is somebody that the Saints asked a lot of their safeties. He can play in the post. They play a lot of too high stuff in the quarters, things they do in New Orleans. The versatility they now have potentially on the back end with those three guys, it gives Mike Macdonald, their new defensive coordinator, a lot to potentially work with, even if the corner talent and overall depth, Nate, isn't what we necessarily expect from
You're building through the spine, and more of these guys are getting more samey body types. He's 220. Kyle Hamilton's a big.
And how much
guy.
does Chuck Clark weigh? I mean, it's got to be close to
he's
that.
Probably I think he's 215, 218. But those are. We have linebackers now weighing that. Like if you watch the Rams last year, they would have linebackers.
He's about 200. I thought he was bigger than that.
Plays big. But they'd have guys out there but you're getting more same body type. So now if you're getting three safeties as a quarterback, it's a pain sometimes. It's really nice when you can look and go, okay, if I'm playing this defense, I know the post safety is always number 20. All right, where's number 20 at? Okay, I'm good. But now if I have three guys I have to worry about and they can, interchange them how they see fit, that just causes a little bit of hesitation. And I don't know if you guys know this, but the Browns have Deshaun Watson now. They're going to be facing teams that are going to be chucking it a little bit more. So might as well build through the spine where we can just help out and a little more soundness on our defense.
I mean, I compared him to Justin Simmons as that type of safety who.
That's a great comparison.
He might not have the best 40, but because he plays so fast with his mind, he sees it unfold. So he's already on that second, third step. By the time the play is unfolding and he gets there, whether it's shooting downhill, running the alley, or if it's to the sideline, I mean, he does have some versatility there as a safety, and it'll be really interesting to see how they utilize this group of defensive backs.
I know, I'm excited to see it.
So speaking of this group of defensive backs,
NFL draft.
the Ravens
The Houston
apparently
Texans select Kenyon Green,
Wow.
Texas A&M.
Kenyon Green, 15th overall, Dane.
That's a little surprising. Did not see Kenyon Green going that early, but and there's a little late, noise about the meniscus in the right knee. Could that cause him to slip a little bit? Wow. I wonder if the Texans see him. Did they announce him as a tackle or a guard? Because that's interesting. I mean, he's. I think we view him mostly as a guard, but he played plenty of tackle as well. They might view him as a guy that gives him that position versatility. He played started 4 different positions last year. Now that's Kenyon Green, keeping him in the state of Texas. That's great.
We talk about the Texans need talent, and now all of a sudden you're getting a guy, Kenyon Green, who, like you just said, like that versatility, that's going to help on the offensive line. So now that's like for a Texans team that just needs players, it's like, okay, we got a starter. Like now, we'll figure out what's his best spot, but at least we can shore it up. Say we kick him out to right tackle, he does a fine job. He's not great. Well, guess what? Next year's draft, we go get a right tackle, and now that guy bumps to guard.
This is what I was talking about with the Texans. You see the graphic right now if you're watching the stream.
Oh yeah,
the Texans guaranteed contracts the Texans have. The players on the Texans roster that have more than $2 million in guarantees past this season: Laramie Tunsil, Brandon Cooks, Malik Collins. That's it.
Wow.
So
that is the list of guys that the Texans owe more than $2 million to if they move on from anybody after this season. So when you're thinking about it, guard and things like that, it doesn't matter.
Nope.
This is such a blank slate, and they're starting over to such an extent that any position should be on the table if you think that guy is worthy of a first-round pick. Dane, we've had a lot of chatter about Zion Johnson in this process and where he fits. Are you surprised that Green not only went this high, but went ahead of a guy like Zion Johnson that a lot of people have liked in the process?
Not necessarily, because I think it was split. Who's the top guard this year, Kenyon Green or Zion Johnson? Remember what we talked about at the top, how teams really in this draft have between 14, 16, 18 first-round grades. I think this probably came down to a team like Houston, where Kenyon Green is probably one of their last first-round grades.
Yeah.
And so they're sticking true to their board. And instead of taking a second-round player on their board, they're taking a first-round player.
Yeah.
So, it's a little surprising to see him go this early. But if the Texans had a first-round grade on him, then I certainly understand. And Kenyon Green grew up just north of Houston. So this is another one, just like Aidan Hutchinson. And just like, we've seen a couple of these local connections, and we've got another one here with Kenyon Green going to Houston, a team that's rebuilding across that offense and on the offensive line.
So in the midst of us talking about these picks, pretty monster trade. The Ravens get the 23rd overall pick, trading Hollywood Brown to the Cardinals. Arizona gets Hollywood Brown and the 100th pick in this draft. We'll talk about the Ravens and what else they might need. And the need that I kept coming back to when I was looking at Baltimore was that lack of depth at corner compared to what we're used to with them, right? I mean, obviously Marcus Peters was hurt for most of last season, so that's why you had guys like Anthony Averett playing a ton of snaps. But they lost about 1,600 snaps at cornerback from last season to guys in free agency this year, with Averett gone, Jimmy Smith gone, and Tavon Young gone. This is a team that's just been flushed with corners forever. Dane, do you think potentially at 23 with some of these other corners that might be on the board, they could double up in the secondary?
Definitely possible. We'll see where Trent McDuffie comes off the board here coming up. I think there's a few, you look at the Chargers, you look at the Eagles, a few landing spots possible for him. And then who's that next corner? Is it Andrew Booth out of Clemson coming off some injuries? Is it Kyler Gordon from Washington? Kyrie Elam from Florida? There are several teams that really like Kyrie Elam. And you look at a team like the Ravens, they prefer size at corner. They want their Marlon Humphreys, who not the biggest corner in the world, but he is big, but he plays big as well. And I think Kyrie Elam could be that type of player if Kyrie Elam makes it to that pick 23.
What do you think about Hollywood to Arizona, Nate?
I'm looking at like depth charts right now, or blah, blah, blah. But what I actually like the Kyrie Elam thing real quick too is that actually makes sense for the Ravens as far because he's a competitive dude and he has some versatility. That actually makes a lot of sense. But Hollywood Brown and the Cardinals, I mean, the Cardinals just want to continue to play fantasy football, it seems like. But that's what it really just they were desperate. There was a lot of rumors maybe linking them with like a Traylon Burks at 22 or something of that sort, but it felt weird. Like I didn't really like kind of like what he would bring to the table for them. I guess it's fine. It's a different type of guy completely than DeAndre Hopkins. And also whatever it seems that they're committed with Rondale Moore in the slot. Hollywood Brown's not going to give him size, obviously, but he's going to give a little more juice. Maybe it's true juice. Rondale's more of a yards after catch juice guy. while Hollywood can take the top off, run those intermediate routes. So I do like a little bit of that synergy, but it's just like, okay, good job, Cardinals. I'm more interested on the Ravens side and going, hi, Rashad Bateman. And, I think that's a real big bet on him and saying like, no, he's our guy and we don't need any more help.
To move up to get the 23rd overall pick to deal a receiver that's been really up and down, that you might not love,
and small,
that has size concerns. I mean, I think it's a smart move by the Ravens.
Yes.
I completely understand why they would want to do something like that.
The Ravens basically, they took Brown, like 29, 30, when they originally took him. They got a better first round pick than when they originally took him, and they got the years out of him. And like you said, he's an inconsistent guy and he's smaller. He's more of a role guy to me than a true bona fide dude.
The most important thing that we need to talk about here, who threw to Hollywood Brown in college?
Kyler Murray. I was going to ask, do we think this is some sort of way to appease Kyler Murray?
100%.
I was thinking about I thought that might be too tinfoil hatty. That's why I didn't bring it up immediately.
That's a great point.
You were bringing these guys back together. Someone he's very comfortable with. Both these guys, they flourished in that offense in 2018.
Washington's pick is in here at 16.
The Washington Commanders select Jahan Dotson, wide receiver.
Wow.
Washington trades away from Olave. They trade away from Jameson Williams. They had to have known there's a good chance, Williams would be off the board, Olave be off the board, Garrett Wilson be off the board. They must have really liked Jahan Dotson. I mean,
I liked him, but this is rich.
It's not like Washington got what was the deal again for Washington? What did they get to move back? It wasn't. It was fourth.
No, it was a couple fourths, right?
Yeah,
it was in the early hundreds.
So this is more about I think how much they like Jahan Dotson more than anything else.
Yeah.
If you look at it, Washington last year, their receivers not named Terry McLaurin combined 6 guys for 107 catches and 1,165 yards. 6 guys for that.
Yeah.
So even if receiver maybe isn't the clearest need for them when you think about them spending on Curtis Samuel, when you think about Terry McLaurin being there, they did need somebody on the outside. This is a huge blow to our De'Ami Brown shares that we have.
Yes.
But other than that, I can understand why Washington feels like this is a decision they have to make. And you like Jahan Dotson.
I do. And I actually love his skill set for what Washington has. So this is, that's a nice blend with Scary Terry. And I still like De'Ami Brown, but he's an outside guy. What I liked about Dotson is I can see him in the slot attacking vertically, and you can win enough on the outside. I do think at the NFL level. So that helps.
Does he feel like Elijah Moore, like this year's Elijah Moore to you a little bit?
A little bit. That's good. I keep comparing him to Lockett, because that's just that's right. That's his upside,
which I like a lot.
Yeah, and because I can just see him attacking intermediate vertical from the slot. He's not going to be that shifty underneath guy, even though he's a smaller size guy. I think he's just a ball player because his catching skills are so good. Who sprays the ball a little bit? Carson Wentz. Mm-hmm. So we got a guy that even if he's 5'10", he plays like he's 6'2", 6'3". It just really helps.
Exactly. He has the largest catch radius of any sub 5'11" receiver that I've scouted in a long time. And I mean, my comparison for him was Deontay Johnson, even though he has much better hands. He's a Deontay Johnson who can catch. So
did you see the note?
Oh man,
hey, we got something.
Matt, can you hold that up?
Traded for AJ Brown.
Ooh,
that's
spicy. All right, we're getting spicy, yeah.
I love doing this.
I'm guessing
it
cost 18.
Yeah, must
pick 18. I'm guessing.
And then
there's Zion.
Zion Johnson I love this for the Chargers with Zion Johnson.
You know what? It's not the sexiest move in the world, but when you look at their needs, right guard was a really big need.
A little surprised over Penning.
Yeah.
At right tackle.
So, but I can understand that. Like, if you don't love Penning and you're reaching because you just think right tackle, if you look at the available options right now in the NFL, you have a Riley Reif. You have guys that if you need to bring in somebody to spot start for you at in that spot, you can do it. So a guy like Zion Johnson, they had a need at right guard. Ode Abushi was there last year. He got hurt. They did not have anybody there. I think Brendan Hymus is currently sitting there at number 1 on their depth chart at right guard. So it is a need, even if it wasn't quite as flashy as their need at corner or tackle or receiver.
It makes a lot of sense. And sometimes Justin Herbert, because he's a line drive thrower, is that he can have balls batted down. That's just what happens when you're like a Tannehill, even like a Desmond Ridder this year, Herbert. Those line drive throwers, even if they're taller, they can get balls batted down. So now we get a guy that's going to shore up the middle and just clean up the pocket. It's sometimes we always think tackles, blind side. Of course, the left side is so important. Now the right side as well. But having good guards matters so much too, because just now the quarterback can operate. It's so hard to throw deep if I can't step up. Well, maybe not for Justin Herbert, but but now it's like even cleaner. So now we can attack the field because the pocket's so much cleaner.
Well, this reminds me a little bit of, I mean, I hate to make this comparison, but when the Cowboys drafted Zach Martin, like it wasn't a sexy pick.
It shored everything up though.
But yeah, it
was
really,
it 17 as well? 17 or 18?
It was
Zach Martin.
16.
Yeah.
One of those. Yeah.
So by the way, Diana Rossini reported the terms of the deal for the Titans and AJ Brown.
Yeah.
Tennessee gets 18 and a third. That's it. Think about what the other wide receiver trades have been like: a first and a second, and you get still a year cheap of AJ Brown because of the deal that he's on, and you're giving a contract to a guy coming off a rookie deal. You have cash flow concerns, all the other things, plus age. AJ Brown's 24.
Okay. Yep.
So is this Traylon Burks?
Or the Titans
Replace AJ Brown with
another guy that
Traylon Burks.
I mean, compared to him, do they move him from Pittsburgh?
And it's interesting that they made this trade now. Like it almost mattered like who was left on the clock for them. You know? Usually this is a trade you make before draft night.
Yeah.
So
especially with contracts and stuff. Yeah.
So now we're looking at it. We're looking at the Eagles offense now. That is Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, one of the best offensive lines in the league. Guess what? When they trade up for their quarterback next year, it's going to be amazing. It's mean to
right.
It's fairly mean, but I still think that they're trying to build this thing up in the best way that they can. That's a hell of a group on offense.
I think this is a great deal by the Eagles. I think this is so much better than anybody who's left on the board. Now that especially I like Dotson, I would take AJ Brown a million times over that. And it just wow. And I love his pairing with Devontae Smith is going to be perfect. You're talking about just like a bully ball guy with yards after the catch, and then you got Devontae Smith, smooth, the Slim Reaper. That's a really fun pairing to have. Man, it makes a ton of sense, but it's just wow. I wasn't expecting it.
What I love about this is, they don't really have. I love Devontae Smith. I think Devontae Smith's a really good player.
Good star.
They don't have that instant offense receiver. They don't have that guy like, we're going to get you the ball in gimmicky ways and let you go to town.
Yeah.
And AJ Brown's more than that, right? Like AJ Brown is, to me, one of the best receivers in the league, period. And the fact that he's 24, you have that one cheap year left, all of that stuff, that's important. But I think the way he complements a guy like Devontae Smith, who's not going to be a yak guy, he's not going to be an instant offense guy. When you're trying to figure out who you want to be in the passing game, which they still are, they're still trying to understand what that side of their offense looks like. Having this as a grenade to just drop into that process, that's not a bad situation, Dane.
No, not at all. And I mean, I want, if you're the Commanders, are you like, oh shoot, we could have had AJ Brown for a first and a third? I mean,
right?
We still like you, Jahan.
Yeah.
But shoot. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's a great deal for the Eagles. I mean, coming out of this first round with, I mean, who had Jordan Davis and AJ Brown as the two players that were coming out of the first round with? I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome for Philly.
Guess what? It's always worth it to have more picks. It's always good to have more picks.
That's it.
Because this is the type of stuff you can do. I mean, man, absolutely crazy. That is of the receivers that we expected to get drafted or traded today. He was not number one on the list.
No.
Debo, we're talking.
Yeah.
I'm just
the Hollywood Brown news was already like, oh wow, that was a big surprise. I mean, this
so
is
interested in why the Titans would do this. Like why you think that this pick, whoever it ends up being, is more valuable to you than AJ Brown, even with the extension. Yeah. Like I just think that. All right, so here we go. 4-year extension for AJ Brown, $100 million. That $37 million, $57 million guaranteed. That's market value.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the
How
same.
many years? 4
years, $100 million. That's in the exact same range that we're talking about with Devontae Adams, with Tyreek Hill. AJ Brown is 24 years old.
Yeah.
I'm a huge AJ Brown fan. Maybe I'm getting blinded by this, Nate. I took him like 4th overall in our non-quarterback draft last year, but I think he's an incredible player. I think this is a great deal for the Eagles, even with the contract extension in hand.
It makes a ton of sense. But now you're also paying him during his prime years. You're not paying a Devontae Adams at 29 years old, the big money,
Yes.
So like that little slot, it makes sense. He's not. Devontae is a different tier, but look at just showing the Titans war room.
John Ross got a massive dip in.
Huge
dip,
dip,
crushing it right now.
But I mean, God, I love this for the Eagles. I really do. Because when they're circling receivers, and I love Drake London for them. It was one of the teams I actually did like because that would be a hilarious pairing with Devontae Smith.
Right.
Just get the two different size guys. But now all those guys, there's a run on them. So yeah, you're following your board in your own way. Our top 15 guys, our top 14 guys are gone. So what else can we do with these picks? Do we punt it to next year? Do we punt back? Or do we trade for freaking AJ Brown?
I know we're doing some really serious analysis tonight, and that's what we're here for. But you cannot underrate when teams do cool stuff. The Eagles easily have the coolest draft so far.
Yeah.
I mean, you're dropping AJ Brown and Jordan Davis into the mix in that uniform. That is by far the coolest thing any team has done. The cool quotient is off the charts with what the Eagles have done tonight.
The Eagles have traded the 18th pick to the Tennessee Titans.
Who knows what's going to happen here with Tennessee?
With the 18th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Trayvon Burks.
There it is.
Yes. One for one change.
It made sense that's who they would go after. And again, they made this deal when they knew Trayvon Burks was available. It's a wonderful. I mean, you have to think they had the groundwork for this trade for a while. Like, you have to get through physicals and all that, because what if he doesn't pass his physical? Can't get the pick back.
Yep.
So I mean, you had to have the groundwork for this trade a few days ahead of time, a few weeks ahead of time. So, and it just all mattered, all depended. So if you're Philly, you're just crossing your fingers. Okay, Burks falls there, or whichever receiver, if they were maybe a couple receivers. Not a lot of pressure on Trayvon Burks now to be the next AJ Brown.
I was trying to figure out when's the last time we saw something like this, where you had a player traded for a first-round pick, and then the team used that first-round pick to essentially just replace that player. Hasn't been that long. Javon Kinlaw.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was actually just even thinking Diggs and Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson and Diggs. That's another really good example. It's happened a lot more recently than you might think.
Just a one for one.
It's a theoretical exercise, but you can lay out the thinking. It's like, all right, we have this guy who is 2 years younger and will cost us 115. I don't know the exact math. I'm not a math guy, but the numbers are so in your favor when it comes to what you're going to pay out that guy if he ends up hitting. There are ways this can go. It can go like Javon Kinlaw and DeForest Buckner, or it can go with Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs. We've seen both ends of the spectrum.
Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, obviously being what you are hoping.
Win for both teams.
And it's hopefully for Burks and for the Eagles and AJ Brown. That's what it works out for here.
Honestly, the rep they just showed on ESPN, that's exactly, and now they're going to show the AJ
NFL
Brown
comparison.
Literally
AJ Brown,
the exact same type of play that he's going to be asked to run 15, 25 times in a game. Tons of digs, tons of in breakers. They get to keep the type of offense they have because the skill set translates. It really does, even if he has other things to grow as a football player. But it makes sense. We talked about on our preview show. We kept bringing up Burks. He's a question mark. His fit really matters. This is one of his better fits, better landing spots, I really think. What's also interesting is 6 receivers are gone, right? So now we're getting into, we thought Chiefs, Packers are going to be looking at receiver. Now we're getting into a weird territory where some guys are going to be shooting up boards. Or
absolutely. I mean, the Packers are in it. They're definitely the team that's been burned the worst by the way that this has gone.
No question. I mean, I was tipped off before the draft that, hey, the Titans were trying to get up to go get Burks. That's what the Packers were worried about. That's what the Cowboys were worried about. I don't think we saw it happening like this because the Titans still have their other first-round pick. But, yeah, that's fascinating. So it's, 6 receivers off the board in the first 18 picks. I mean, it's in, 6 within – 8 or 9 picks. We saw it. We
5
thought
offensive linemen.
Yeah,
we got 6 receivers.
I was really interested in what this draft was going to be for the Titans because I thought that they had run out of road. And their the way they've built that team. When you think about the money that they've allocated toward the quarterback, they're spending more money on quarterback this year than any team in the league against the cap. $38.6 million for Ryan Tannehill. The Tennessee Titans have the most expensive offense in football going into this season. And that was with A.J. Brown on a rookie deal. They don't save any money on A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, are we going to see them shift what they are? Are we going to see them try to reset in a soft way to say, how are we going to figure out the next phase of this?
Yeah.
They didn't do that at all. The one guy they moved on from, they don't have to pay the receiver, but they're the model and what they're trying to be is the exact same when you swap in Trayvon Burks for A.J. Brown.
And I love that Burks is going to get to play with Robert Woods. Like, that's going to be a perfect pro for him to just learn the little crafty
really good point.
Just the old man at the YMCA game, with the guy that can go dunk but can't shoot a jumper. So I think it's going to be a perfect little pairing there and growth process. Really,
because you do worry a little bit about Burks and just the routes and being a little more consistent as an outside player. But I mean, yeah, I expect them to use them all over the formation.
Yep.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, these short catch and run opportunities, go be physical, go use that speed. I mean, it's kind of like AJ Brown, like a guy that maybe wasn't the fastest, but
build up speed. Just
nobody really caught him from behind. So it's the same type of player with Treylon Burks.
Yep, absolutely. I know my comparison kind of fell to Josh Gordon because I just had those images where Josh Gordon, especially in the pros, at 228, catching slants and just splitting guys. And I could see Treylon Burks kind of like until he earns other routes to be asked to run. It's like, no, we'll just, everything's in breaking and just go. Just go. Where you have 3 routes: slant, a dig, and a hitch. Get the ball in your hands.
Let's not complicate things when we don't need to.
Yep.
Guys, I'm shook about this AJ Brown going to the Eagles thing. I'm still like not ready to process it and what it means.
Jalen Hurts is probably the happiest. I mean, and as much as we talk about a quarterback next year for the Eagles, I mean, this is set up for him to take that next step for him as a player, as a quarterback, and to prove why the Eagles don't need to invest a first rounder at the position. So, I mean, the Eagles went to the playoffs last year with Jalen Hurts at the helm. Now it's up to Hurts. They've got you weapons. The offense is set up for you. Let's see what you do with it.
Yeah, I joked before that this for whoever their next quarterback is, but they've given every opportunity to Jalen Hurts. I mean, this is one of those scenarios. There's no ambiguity about what he should be able to accomplish with the players around him. Again, they might have the best line in the league now, combined with Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, AJ Brown. I mean, there's a real amount of talent on that offense.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like you said, whoever they trade up for next year, I know you're joking, but seriously though, like a rookie quarterback next year is in the greatest spot possible. Like I have weapons in the offensive line, and I can just work and get better as a pro.
It's just about having flexibility.
It really
is. It's just about being able to pivot and having all of these options, and that's the benefit of like
more picks. You said it. They still have another 3rd rounder. They had 2 3s, so they're not sacrificing necessarily. They still have those
19th picks in the 2022 NFL Draft. The New Orleans Saints select Trevor Penning, tackle.
So
Northern
it didn't
Iowa.
necessarily work out how we thought it would with where the picks happened.
Yep.
But the Saints moved up in that deal with Philly. Everyone assumed if it wasn't for a quarterback and they weren't going to make a big move, they wanted a tackle and a receiver. Yeah. They got a tackle and a receiver, Dane.
That's exactly it. And they feel like they're ready to go compete right now. And with this offense, you drop in an Olave, you drop in a Trevor Penning, and this is going to be interesting to see how it all gels. Penning's is still raw in a few areas, but again, you look at the traits: 6'7", 325, the competitiveness that he plays with, the athleticism, the power. So yeah, you bet on guys like this. A little surprised that he made it through the Chargers and some of these other teams to make it to 19. But the Saints are sure happy he did.
Oh yeah, and it makes sense too because they've hurt James Hurst at left tackle right now. Yeah. So Penning is a little bit of a project. He is. He's got ways to go using his anchor, using all the gifts that he has. He's still figuring out how to play tackle. So now it's a good situation. The Saints like to have plans for these guys. So now obviously we have Ramczyk on the right side, so we're going to see him on the left side. So but right away, day one, he doesn't have to be a guy, but maybe he surprises during camp. But it's nice. They can bring him along how they see fit, as fast or as slow as they want. But it's nice to have a play in such an important position. It's such a hard position to pick up in the NFL.
My gut instinct is they want him on the field as
soon as
they
sure.
possibly get him on the field, because they do feel like this is it. Like there's a strike while the iron is hot sort of moment where there's just not that many teams in the NFC they have to worry about. It's why you make the move in the first place.
Well, I mean, they took Cesar Ruiz a few years ago, and it was like, oh okay. Yeah. Like, but they like to replenish the line. They build through the offensive line. They love doing it. That's what the Saints always do. They're one of the few teams that'll carry 8 offensive linemen on game day because they like to go 6 offensive linemen, and have a jumbo tight end. Like they are one of the teams that year after year does that. And I think they stay the same way with Sean Payton gone.
And this is now the first time since 1997, quarter of a century, that we have not had a quarterback drafted in the first 19 picks.
Crazy.
Quarter of a century. We have to go back. And that's
EJ Manuel was 13.
No, he was like
17,
16, something like that. So and like Chad Pennington was 18. So let's go back to 97 and Druckenmiller, who was like 26 overall in that draft of the 49ers. So now this is the spot we've been talking about with the Steelers.
And again, we talk about some of the teams that couldn't be happier with the way the draft is unfolded. The Steelers have had to do nothing.
Yeah.
They're sitting there at 20. Every single quarterback is on the board. We've spent months hemming and hawing about which guy they like, which guy they have to move up for, which guy is ultimately going to be the decision.
What their dinner meal was.
And now, and now it doesn't matter. Like now we get to actually find out, Dane, who they actually preferred in the process, because every single guy they might have wanted is available to them.
If it's a quarterback. I mean,
if it's quarterback, yes.
We think, yeah.
Listen, when you can roll Mitchell Trubisky, you got to do it.
You got to do it. I mean, listen, with the Steelers, they do you keep Kenny Pickett in Pitt at Heinz Field? Do you go for the high upside with Malik Willis?
Yep.
I mean, there were so many connections to Malik Willis and the Steelers to the Senior Bowl, which felt a little forced, but it's. Could we see a surprise in your guy, Desmond Ridder?
Yeah.
I mean, this all goes down to just who they believe in the most if it's a quarterback. So this is going to be fascinating.
I know. That's what this is one of the picks I've been kind of geared up for.
Right.
This one, because it's the Steelers. Steelers are the Steelers. They're one of the teams, they do what they do. They stick with their plans. You don't always agree with it, but sometimes no, the Steelers are they have their processes that they like, but it's not all the time. I mean, since Big Ben got picked, they're going for a quarterback. So it's ooh, what do the Steelers do now? What's the Steelers' plan? They always march their own rhythm. Okay, what did they do with quarterback position? We see what all the other teams have to do. So I've been very, very curious what this pick ends up being, because honestly, like Dane said, it might not be a quarterback.
I mean, it's funny. We talk so much about maybe a trade, or these quarterbacks are going to go. But it's okay, well, who's going to take them? What's the path? And probably not the Saints. But okay, so who's trading up in front of the Steelers?
Yep.
Not the Titans. I mean, you run out of these scenarios, and I think the Steelers probably looked at all the scenarios and said, "We kind of feel good sitting here.
Yeah,
we feel good. We're going to get our guy at this 20th pick."
And it almost brings me back to the conversation we're having about Baker Mayfield right now, because there's so many seats filled that the dynamics of quarterback availability have shifted a little bit.
Yep.
So in a normal year, if you were the Steelers and you were having to pick 20th overall, you'd kind of be lamenting the problem that a lot of teams have fallen into. We were too good. We were too good to be in range. How are we going to reset and find our guy and get our quarterback without trading up and having to give up assets? It's so many teams fall into that. I mean, my team gave away Evan Neal because they needed to go up and get Justin Fields last year because they were picking exactly 20th. In the same way the Steelers are now. And this year, because the quarterback class is a little weaker, because so many of those seats have already been filled because teams didn't want to go into the quarterback class, the Steelers now potentially can get their guy at 20 without having to do anything. Yeah. They maybe avoid that purgatory that so many other teams have fallen into. Listen, there's a reason the guy's available at 20.
Yes.
So it's not a perfect
exactly,
scenario,
right.
But there still is a timeline here that works out really well for Pittsburgh.
And there's a reason we mentioned 4 or 3 quarterbacks' names.
Yes.
It's because there's no one's, even if I like Ridder or you like a guy, it's not I'm really ready to run through a table or run through a door and pick this guy at pick 8 or pick 10. It's yeah, I guess I'll take him. That's kind of what all these guys really are in this draft.
Gut feeling, then.
I went Pickett in my mock. I'll stick with Pickett.
Why?
I think that if you want a guy that's accurate, he's got some mobility. I think there's a lot of things that you can point to that plays at the next position or the next level at that position that Kenny Pickett provides. So, but it just comes down to who they like the most. If they want to go upside, then I get Malik Willis.
Mm-hmm.
They want a combination of both, I get Ridder.
Yep.
So, these meetings, they wined and dined with all these quarterbacks. It's just, who knows how some of those meetings went could decide this pick. As maybe silly as that sounds, when the tape is what matters the most, you just don't know, because quarterback is an intangible position and ownership's involved with this position. Everyone's involved with this decision. So there's so many different layers that lead you to who that guy is.
Oh my gosh. Hello, Las Vegas.
We talked about this earlier this week when we were talking on Monday about, all right, even if we don't love the quarterbacks.
In the 2022 NFL Draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Kenny Pickett.
There it is.
Quarterback. Pittsburgh.
Keeping him in Heinz Field?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to go far.
Does not.
No,
I mean,
doesn't.
don't worry about the smaller hands in that weather, but you know what? He did it. I mean, consistently playing in that kind of condition. So look, with Pickett, yeah, you do worry a little bit about the upside in terms of, okay, what's his ceiling as an NFL quarterback? But I think that Mitch Trubisky's not the starter going into the season. This will be an open competition in training camp. Kenny Pickett could very easily win that job and be the starter from the season opener. He has that type of ability. I mean, the maturity that he played with, there's so much to like about what he brings to your locker room at that position. So I'm not surprised to see this pick, but, it's just kind of crazy that it played out this way.
You're right. I know I picked 22. And it's funny for anyone that hasn't been there, but it's funny, the Steelers and Pitt's facility, everyone goes, oh, it's right next door. It's literally a duplex. It's a duplex. They have 3 shared fields or 4 shared fields, and then they have one building that they split right down the middle. And it's like a mirrored how the offices are and everything. So he literally just is going next door. His commute and everything is the same. His house will probably be nicer in Pittsburgh than a dorm or wherever he was doing on in Shady Side or something. But it's going to be really interesting to see. Or it's just kind of, we're talking about guys staying in the same spots. We talked about Aidan Hutchinson. He's not from Pittsburgh, but it's another Pittsburgh quarterback coming up.
Yeah, from Jersey, but it's that region of the country.
Yes.
No question.
Dan, what do you think in terms of best case scenario for Pickett? If things go well for him, what type of quarterback would we be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kirk Cousins is fair. I think that he is limited in a few areas, and you do worry about some of that scar tissue with in terms of the pocket management. And dealing with pressure and negotiating with that. But again, I think the football IQ, I mean, this is a guy that he'll go through progressions. Yeah, there are times where his eyes will get away from him at times because he starts to think, okay, that internal clock's going off. I got to go. Right. And so there are times that happens. But the accuracy that he has at all levels of the field from different platforms, if you're going to bet on a quarterback, why not bet on a quarterback that has that? And we talk so much about how Mike Tomlin and that staff wanted to get more mobile at the quarterback position. No, that he is not the Malik Willis type of runner and type of athlete, but Pickett's a good athlete. Yeah. I mean, he can create for himself. He can move the pocket. He can do some things that this team wants to do. But I don't know. Say you're the Browns, you're the Ravens, you're the Bengals. How are you feeling about this pick? Yeah. If you're another team in the division, is that? I mean, it doesn't really scare me, but it's a really interesting fit.
Yeah. They're in a weird position.
Yeah,
because when I watched Pickett, Nate, I was surprised at how uncomfortable in the pocket he was and how his lack of feel really does show up. Because I thought I was going to see this guy just littered with intangibles. Even if the physical gifts aren't eye-popping, he would play the position with a real sense about him. When people mention him and Joe Burrow in the same breath, I don't see that at all. And you look at the Steelers and their setup right now, the Steelers' offensive line is not very good. Yeah. Their offense is much further away from a complete product than you would want to see with a quarterback that looks good operating in ideal circumstances. The circumstances in the pocket in Pittsburgh right now are not going to be ideal.
And as we usually talk about guys creating, and it's with their legs down the field, using their legs down the field and running for 8 yards, running for a first down. Pickett can do that, but he creates the throw. Yes. That's what he's doing. He's extending plays to throw, and that's what he does so well. And what Dane was alluding to is all that off-platform stuff, that's going to matter. Yeah. This O-line's not going to be great. Okay, so now he knows how to step up in a way out of the pocket. And that's what kind of combining what you both have said about Pickett so far is when I first watched him, I thought he was going to be this, 5th-year senior or whatever, 6-year senior. All this processing going to be 1 to 2 to 3. And it was like, oh no, you're a creation guy. You're Kenny Ballgame. That's what he is. And that's what he brings to the table. So it makes more sense. You need that with the Steelers are at right now. I'm curious how it's going to fit with Matt Canada's offense. Because it's weird that Pitt ran more of a pro-style offense than the Steelers did with Matt Canada under Mark Whipple.
Yeah.
Right. So and I'm sure Mark Whipple is coach with the Steelers. I'm sure
Matt Canada's coached at Pitt.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
I'm sure there's been a whole lot of conversations.
Even if we don't love Kenny Pickett, and even if his upside isn't nearly in the same range as some of these other quarterbacks that have gone in the last few years, at 20th overall, this is a dice roll worth taking every single time. Because if it hits, if you get your franchise quarterback with the 20th overall pick, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And guess what? If Kenny Pickett fails and it doesn't work, you start over 3 years
trade up.
4 years. Exactly.
Right, yeah.
You didn't leverage yourself in any way.
Yep.
You used your first round pick on a quarterback. If it doesn't work, all right, You know, that didn't work. But in the other side of this, I think is important to take into consideration. You have a general manager that's about to walk out the door, who's been there for a very, very long time. Did they feel an urgency or an obligation in some way to set up whatever the next phase of the organization looks like now that Kevin Colbert is walking away? And not dissimilar to what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson when Ozzie Newsome walked away and gave the team to Eric DeCosta.
I mean, you would think that these decisions are very, very collaborative. So, you know, Mike Tomlin's very much in the decision-making process here. And that's a big part of that. Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot you said. And we actually have a Chiefs trading up here with the Pats, giving up a 3rd and 4th to move up to 21.
Yeah.
All the receivers are the 6 receivers are off the board.
Right in front of the Packers here too. That's what's.
Do they take the next receiver, Pickens or
Trent McDuffie?
Trent McDuffie.
They need corner. That makes. I like that.
Yeah.
And potentially, did they think they needed to get in front of Baltimore? Because if Baltimore was going to potentially pick a corner now at 23.
Good call.
Nate, when we were thinking about the Eagles or the Chiefs coming into this draft, it was tempting to do what the Titans just did. Right? We traded away a guy, let's draft a guy to replace him. But they have MVS on the roster. They signed Juju Smith-Schuster. They didn't necessarily have that glaring hole. I figured, can we use these picks to replenish cheap positions that don't come cheap? Can we go to corner? Can we go to safety? Can we go get a pass rusher? That's what I thought they might try to do. Reset your financial timeline almost as an entire franchise.
Right.
And I think this is a guy at a position of need and fills kind of that exact plan that you and I discussed a lot heading into the draft.
And rather than, oh man, we're starting player generated X, random name at the DB.
But that's what they've done.
That's
why it's a little bit surprising.
But now I think they after last year, especially what they went through the first 10 weeks before they put it together after the bye on defense, was like, okay, we can't do that again.
Now instead of a failed first round pick starting a corner for them, it's an actual first round pick that hasn't failed.
At least you tried to answer it. Yeah. I think they looked at Spags in his office every week and were like, sorry, bud, we're going to get you some help. But he's a smart player. McDuffie is a really smart, intelligent corner. And that's what now he's going on a defense that likes smart, versatile players. So it's I like this pairing. It makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it gives them just more, pedigree on their defense as opposed to just a grab bag.
What do you think about this, Dane? What do you think about just the fit with McDuffie in Kansas City?
I love the fit. And I mean, I love Trent McDuffie as a player. His intelligence, it just blows me away. I mean, how smart he is for such a young player. Then we know that Washington secondary, they put a lot on their plates, and McDuffie can answer it. Whatever the offense is throwing at him, McDuffie knows how to answer. So, yeah, you have to sacrifice the lack of length a little bit. So, under 30-inch arms, not ideal. I mean, inches matter at that position, but he's a top-tier athlete. And from an intelligence standpoint, the mental standpoint, you love what you're getting. Yeah. So 100% on board with the Chiefs trading up for this player.
And that intelligence comes in that he knows what he is. He knows he has short arms, and that's how he plays. And and yes, that's a limitation. Sometimes but he'll high-low balls. He understands, like when he's in his zone coverage, he understands, all right, I don't usually have the length to get back there because I'm not long enough, but how he plays, like he'll kind of go 70-30 as opposed to 50-50.
Right.
Those little things, he knows what he is.
It's just that spatial awareness and just understanding. Like, again, it's not like he had 32-inch arms and then woke up one day with 29-inch arms. He's always been playing this way. And so knowing he has to win with his mind is something that has carried with him all along. And that spatial awareness, the route recognition, it really is impressive, and it helps him make plays compensating for that lack of length.
It's fun to watch for the college corner. You don't always get that all day. Yeah. Some of these guys don't know what the hell they're looking at. So it's refreshing sometimes when you're seeing such intelligent play at a really hard position.
Right. And we knew he was going to slip maybe a little bit because that lack of length, but not too far.
This is about where
yeah, exactly.
This makes total sense where he went. Yeah.
The Chiefs gave up 94 and 121, so not a ton.
A late third and a fourth.
They also have another first-round pick that we're looking at a little bit later here. I'm wondering if you're the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots needed a corner. The Patriots needed defensive back help.
Yep.
I mean, maybe there's a chance that McDuffie doesn't check some physical boxes for them, or that they want to go in a different direction. If linebacker to them is a more pressing need, do they think they can get one of the linebackers at 29?
No off-ball linebackers have been drafted yet, so good chance, whether it's Quay Walker, Devin Lloyd, whoever that top linebacker is, good chance, he could be there for him.
And even if they trade back, they like Elam. Someone like that. Maybe there's a different guy they like their flavor.
2022 NFL Draft. The Green Bay Packers select Quay Walker.
Here we go.
Georgia.
Sorry,
Wow, that
jinxed it a
went
little
linebacker.
bit. But I said it. You asked me a surprise. I said, don't be surprised if Quay Walker is the first off-ball linebacker
There
drafted.
it is.
I mean, when you're talking, again, 6'4", 240, run a 4.52, a one-year starter, but the read-react that he showed this past year was really, really impressive. So another Georgia defender, front seven defender off the board.
And Packers love athletes. Like,
Yeah.
they have athletic thresholds, and he's going to pass them.
They have the longest linebacking duo
Oh, yeah,
Campbell.
Yeah.
I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Now you put Devondre Campbell next to Quay Walker. Quay Walker has a 96th percentile wingspan.
Is that good?
And now it seems high.
Seems high, yeah.
We've established, not a math guy.
Right.
But it does seem high.
Couldn't get to 97, but
I mean, now you got two pterodactyls now in the middle of your defense. I cannot. This is fine in terms of, I'm excited I can understand it like on a football level, those two guys together. I cannot imagine being a Packers fan right now.
I know, right?
You've been sitting there for a month
receiver.
thinking about Chris Olave and all these guys and everything else. And you draft a linebacker.
At least they didn't pass on Olave. They didn't pass on Burks.
That was even more.
They were wiped out, and they still have that second first rounder to get a Christian Watson, a George Pickens, if they want to go that route. So, I totally get this pick for them.
So Buffalo has traded up to the 23rd pick here.
Or they want to get in front of Dallas.
I would love Elam.
That's where I went my mock. It's just
because
a big physical corner. They need that corner too.
He can be number 2. And
again,
he can play the slot for him too.
They want to get in front of Dallas here. So
and then the guards are gone.
The guards are gone.
Receivers.
Tyler Smith is who I think Dallas might go now.
That could be interesting too.
But it's interesting that that Buffalo felt like they needed to leapfrog Dallas to get to this pick.
Okay.
So
the Bills only give up 130 to go.
It's a 4th rounder.
25 and excuse me. Okay, I thought the Buffalo had kept the 25th pick, so they only move up 2 spots.
Yeah.
I thought that the Buffalo still had their pick at 25.
They want to skip Dallas.
Baltimore just moved back 2 spots. Yeah.
So at Baltimore, we thought potentially could take a corner, and now if Buffalo comes and takes one, then obviously the Ravens had no interest in doing that.
I mean, I wouldn't think they'd. I know
corner makes sense, right?
It
does.
does.
The Bills isn't like I didn't see them moving up for a line or a running back. It just doesn't. I can't see it.
Sign Vaughn. I mean, I'm just trying. I've been going through all the positions in my head. Like receivers doesn't seem right at this spot. I know people have been hyping up maybe Breece Hall going to them, but I don't think they would.
I don't
do a double whammy of moving up before Dallas for that. That's
linebacker. Devin Lloyd.
I know it's interesting. Maybe is there a safeties that they like? Or that
Dax Hill.
Dax Hill maybe there. He plays in the slot. Like
someone Dallas might have been interested in.
Yeah.
Dallas, I think they wanted Kenyon Green, Zion Johnson, Traylon Burks. Yeah. They've been wiped out.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dallas is a little bit of a wide open book right now. I mean, just looking at my best available, it's Devin Lloyd. I mean, I was really high in him. He's my top available right now. I'm going down George Karlaftis. He'd be next, best available defensive end out of Purdue.
Bills guy too. It kind of does.
They've got a lot.
I know, and they got Vaughn.
You got Russo. You got Boogie.
But we keep saying
that.
Vanessa's still there.
Yeah, Vanessa's there. That seems like you got too many bodies tied up there. I mean, I'm fascinated by what it would be if it's not a corner. I just have to assume they loved one of the corners, and
I'll say DB. Yeah,
Kyrie Elam's the name that.
Elam, really.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Again, that's where I went with my mock because I think the fit. The select where we're at in the first round.
Yep.
You bet on a guy that's 6'1", 200 pounds, ran a 4.3, physical, can play man.
Yep.
I mean, I think there's a lot of things that align with Buffalo here.
Yeah. And he's a physical player, which that's what the Bills like, just as a team. Like they have a certain mindset they like. They like competitive guys. And so it would make a lot of sense. Elam was one of the more fun watches because I did like his versatility as well, having some of those slot reps as well, which is so nice to see from a bigger guy. Like, and then that's why also, with Dax Hill too, it was a safety, but his best reps were in the slot playing like man coverage. And Bills love being a big nickel. They love having 3 safeties out there. And even when one of the safeties went down, they're still playing big nickel.
There's also the Jordan Poyer question about this. Whether
those guys
want to pay Poyer.
How old are they now? They're
getting up there.
They're up there.
They're getting up there.
Exactly.
It's less exciting to me because I want to just like the Thanos meme. You just drop the last Infinity Stone in there and just like power up. That's what I want. I want them to draft the corner and have everything else fall into place here. But there's a chance that they're taking a longer view with this.
Yep. And Poyer and Hyde are both 31. So that's could be a succession plan. And if you get like I said again, Dax Hill who can play in the slot. Maybe this year he's not the deep guy, but then next year, 2023 season.
Just so much you could do with him.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to play outside corner, why couldn't he do that?
Could, yeah, I know.
I mean,
that's intriguing. Then
It's
now you've piqued my interest again.
It stunned me how good he was in coverage in man-to-man situations. I was like, this is a safety. He looks like a first-round corner.
He tested like a first-round corner.
Dane, who else is in your best available right now? I'm just trying to figure out like the way that the last 8 or so picks here could shape up in terms of who's available, positions, everything else.
Devin Lloyd out of Utah, linebacker. George Karlaftis, pass rusher, Purdue. Tyler Linderbaum, center, Iowa. Daxton Hill, Michigan. Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle out of Georgia. Andrew Booth, Clemson, the other corner that is a possibility here if they go in that direction. Arnold Ebiketie, the pass rusher from Penn State. And then Nakobe Dean, the other Georgia linebacker. So pretty good players still available here.
We're out of receivers, essentially.
Well, I mean, we could see a George Pickens. We could see a Christian Watson, a Sky Moore.
All right, so Pickens is, okay. All right.
There are, what was, one of my bold predictions from our pod earlier this week was we'd see at least 7 receivers off the board. We've got 6. Just one more ties the record for first-round wide receivers. Maybe we get 8. It's certainly possible.
Yeah, but there is a drop in tier in receivers, but there's still good ones out there. There's just more that early second round type, which is what you're saying though, is that those could easily sneak in, especially at this type of draft.
How many? I'm looking at this right now. The Ravens already have 1, 2, 3, 4 fourth round picks. Now, after trading with the Bills, the Ravens will pick 5 times in the 4th round.
Yeah, why not?
Hey, this is a draft that, 3rd, 4th round. Yeah, you want those picks.
Yeah.
With the 23rd pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Kaiir Elam.
There we go.
It made too much sense.
Defensive back,
there it is.
Florida.
I love the fit.
Love that fit.
And now you look at it. That was it.
Yeah.
If you look at this team, that was the last thing.
Yep.
No.
And now if that hits, you're out of weaknesses.
That's a sweet team.
I mean, Levi Wallace has been fine the last couple of years, right? Like they were the best defense in football last year with Levi Wallace as their second corner. But I think they've been trying to replace Levi Wallace for like 4 years.
Yes.
Right.
And just haven't been able to do it. And now you have a guy in Elam that, you know what I love about this, Dane, and I want to hear what you think. When you watch them play, and they're a zone-heavy team, there's nothing passive about it.
Right.
They are knocking people around. They play in a physical, aggressive brand of defense. And that's exactly the type of player that Kaiir Elam is, even in zone coverage.
Play strength. You want someone that's going to reroute wide receivers and break up that chemistry, that timing. That's what he does. And you do worry a little bit about, the twitch at the top of routes where, those comebacks or, some of these, savvy receivers will be able to kind of set them up and get a little bit of separation. But again, we're talking about a guy that's 6'1.5", 191 pounds. And he's got speed. He's got physicality. There's a lot of things that just kind of check that box. He's not even 21 years old yet. He can't have a drink tonight and celebrate that he's a first-round pick. So, I mean, there's a lot that kind of check the box, even though he's not a perfect player.
And then you go into a room that already has Tre'Davious White in it, that has Mike Hyde in it, that has Jordan Poyer in it. I love that. I love when you have strengths of your roster and you draft in accordance with those strengths because you only make them stronger most of the time. And I think you could be looking at a really similar situation with Elam and the Bills here. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, the Dallas Cowboys are on the clock.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. People don't always realize that physical symptoms like headaches, teeth grinding, and even digestive issues can be indicators of stress. And let's not forget about doom scrolling, sleeping too little, sleeping too much, undereating, and overeating. I'm no stranger to stress. I think everyone has it in some form or version in their lives, and it's just a matter of how we deal with it. Stress shows up in all kinds of ways, and in a world that's telling you to do more, sleep less, and grind all the time, here's your reminder to take care of yourself. Do less, and maybe try some therapy. I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I go see a therapist weekly when I'm home and my schedule is regular, and it's just a great way to have that check-in with yourself every single week, to kind of press pause, step back, think about where you are, where you want to go, set some goals, think about your habits. I know for me personally, it's been a huge help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy. Give it a try and see if online therapy can help lower your stress. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and the Athletic Football Show listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/maze. That's BetterHelp, TTERHELP.com/MAYS. Spring is so close you can almost feel it, so it's the perfect time to get outside and move, whatever your speed. Allbirds just released the new Tree Dasher 2, the next generation of their best-selling, insanely comfortable running shoe made from a mix of natural materials that's better for you and better for the planet. I love my Allbirds Tree Dasher 2s. I'm currently on the road right now. I've been bouncing around between Palm Springs and Las Vegas. They're so light. I can fit them in my suitcase with no problems at all, and it allows me to work out when I'm on the road. They look great, they feel great, and I got to get a run in while I was traveling without some bulky shoes that were weighing down my luggage and me. The next evolution of the Allbirds best-selling running shoe adds comfort to every run with lighter, more responsive foam, extra grip, and an improved fit to keep you running and nature winning. Spring forward with the Allbirds Tree Dasher 2 running shoe. Discover your perfect pair at allbirds.com today. That's ALLBIRDS.com. No one likes waiting on a paycheck, especially when you've got your bills due. Good thing there's Chime. Now you can get your paycheck up to 2 days early with direct deposit. That's up to 2 more days to save, pay bills, and generally just feel good about your money situation. But Chime is about more than just getting paid early. It's also an award-winning mobile app, checking account, debit card, and optional savings account. So what are you waiting for? Hopefully not your paycheck. Get started with Chime today. Applying for a free account takes less than 2 minutes. Get started at chime.com/maze. That's chime.com/MAYS. The Chime Credit Builder Visa Credit Card is issued by Stride Bank N.A. pursuant to a license from Visa USA Chime checking account and $200 qualifying direct deposit required to apply for the secured Chime Credit Builder Visa Credit Card. Regular on-time payment history can have a positive impact on your credit score. Impact score may vary, and some users' scores may not improve.
All right, guys, we are back. The Dallas Cowboys are on the clock. Dane, where are you going here for the Cowboys?
They're wiped out with their option A's, where they want to go. they wanted one of the guards. They wanted Zion Johnson. They wanted.
They're screwed.
So let's pack it up. Let's go. But okay, could we see the Tyler Linderbaum fall stop here? Tyler Smith from Tulsa is a guy that is. Can they see him stepping in at left guard and then being the heir apparent outside at left tackle?
I did not think about that.
Yeah,
I did not think about that.
That's where
I think he has the skill set to do that.
He can hang a tackle.
There will be plenty of hiccups and bumps along the way. But yes, I think that is a feasible path for him to get on the field now, but also long term.
He has a ways to go technique wise. It's just you're betting on his traits, and we talked about penning with this and our preview show. You're betting on your O-line coach, and you're betting on him. Like, okay, we'll hone in on these traits because he's a great athlete. He's got good size and he's got long arms. I mean, if you're going to take a chance on a guy, a tackle prospect in the 20s, usually these guys go, if they're skilled enough, he would have gone top 10.
Right.
Like, that's why he's in the 20s or potentially later.
24th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Tyler Smith, tackle Tulsa.
Again, okay, now here's the path. He's probably the Cowboys are hoping he is their starting left guard from day one. And then the heir apparent at left tackle taking over 2 years from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, wherever that ends up being. So I don't think this was ideally where they wanted to go, but I think they're very comfortable going this route. They were wiped out at offensive line, and this was their next best option. Tyler Smith, I know, was a second-round grade on their board, but here at pick 24, that's what we're talking about, second-round grades.
Yep. He's a swing. You're swinging, and you hope you have a good plan. I like the guard, and then it's like, wow, this guy's actually pretty damn good. Yeah, let's put him on the left side.
They were comfortable doing that. Yeah. I know it's a different staff now, but organizationally, they've been fine with uncertainty when it comes to offensive line roles. Yep. Think about La'el Collins. Think about how much La'el Collins bounced around as they try to figure out, well, we don't need a right tackle right now. We'll put him at guard, and we'll figure the rest out later. Yeah. I think that's kind of what this is. And the same conversation we had about Kyrie, where you're betting on the room lifting a guy that maybe is a little bit rougher on the edges. And Tyler Smith is rougher around the edges than Kyrie Elam is. Right. You have a Zach Martin there. You have a Tyron Smith there. Yep. You hope that that's a rising tide that lifts all boats, and that you have somebody that his development is accentuated, accelerated, because of those guys that he's going to be around all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see on these clips, he's just an easy mover for that size, but it's just gonna be hands. He is so wide every snap of the ball. His hands are either by his knees or way out here, and when he's doing that, you can at least fix that. It's not like he's falling over every play and he's slow footed. It's like, oh shoot, like you watch Caleb McGarry as soon as he enters the league, you're like, oh, don't wear black shoes, man. You're looking even slower than you are. But it's like you're like, oh man, how do we get this guy on the field? You're trying to get him on the field, trying to get him to take live bullets. And that's where Dane's idea with starting at guard, because those top two guards, Kenyon Green, Zion Johnson being gone, they wanted that. Like that made so much sense.
And they're receivers.
That's a different path for him.
Yep. All right, it's time for Lindsey Jones to hop on with us. She is paying attention to all things draft right now. Lindsey, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm trying to keep up with this stuff. It's all like a million miles a minute, but it's been really fun so far.
What has been the thing that's jumped out to you the most? What's been your favorite moment so far?
I mean, to me, it's just everything that's happened with the wide receivers. I mean, to me, this is the story of the draft, more so than the top 5 guys all being defensive players or the quarterbacks falling. It's kind of a continuation of what we've seen this offseason as a whole, that the wide receiver market has completely changed. And tonight has just been an extension of that, between kind of the run on quarterbacks in the mid-teens, the trade up for wide receivers, and then obviously the 2 trades, especially the huge A.J. Brown trade. So to me, that's the story of the first round. And we'll see what happens here now. I mean, I think the Ravens are back on the clock right now. They have been moving all over the place. I think they have like 18 4th-round picks now they've accumulated.
We were just discussing that.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like classic Ravens stuff right now. So it's been pretty fun.
You obviously are paying a lot of attention to the AFC West, as you always do. Chargers go with the guard in the first round. We did not think about that. We did not talk about that much in the lead up to the draft. We were thinking maybe a receiver, maybe an offensive tackle. Were you surprised at all that Zion Johnson was what the Chargers thought was best for them in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of fell nicely for them, where they didn't, the receivers were kind of already off the board, so they weren't going to make like a huge move, give up a lot of capital there. And it's a need for them, and we'll have to see. I mean, I think right tackle maybe would have been a better fit, but I think they're in a position right now where they could kind of just take the best player right now, and it just kind of I think it fell nicely for them, and I feel like this is going to be a pick that in a couple months we're going to go, of course the Chargers just landed a guy who's going to be a week 1 starter, and they've fortified one part of their offensive line. I don't think they should be done there, but it works.
There are a few things better than knowing you might be able to plug a guard in for the next 10 years. I find a lot of solace in that and comfort in that, even though some people might not. The Chiefs, obviously, we were thinking about a receiver for a long time after the Tyreek Hill deal. We didn't know which direction they might go with all those receivers off the board. They go get a corner. Not surprising to me because of just how many needs they had on defense. What was your reaction to the Trent McDuffie pick when it comes to Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good value there. He was a guy who potentially could have gone off the board earlier in the first round. It's a little bit of a different strategy out of Brett Veach, who they haven't typically invested a lot at that position in terms of like high draft picks and stuff, but it was a clear need for them. The way that the AFC West is set up right now, you're going to need some guys who can cover, and they didn't really have that yet. So I like it. We'll see what they do with their second round pick or first round pick later here in this round.
All right. We will hear from you plenty more here over the weekend. Thanks for joining us, Lindsey.
All right.
All right. Baltimore is on the clock here at 25. What do we think?
Karl Loftus? Jermaine Johnson still out there?
So why we have not talked about Jermaine Johnson.
No.
Are you surprised with the Jermaine Johnson, let's say fall, even though we don't know?
If Jermaine Johnson was the 4th overall pick tonight, would not have been shocked. So yeah, it is a little surprising that he is still on the board.
Why do you think it might be? Like, what do you think might be giving teams pause about Jermaine Johnson?
He's an older player, a guy with 1 year of production, and that's something. I don't think he has an elite get off. Like, that's not necessarily what makes him a skilled pass rusher. But this is still a really quality player. I love him as a run defender. I love him as a pass rusher. So it is a little surprising to see him still available when, 1 year of production, but really good 1 year of production. I mean, if you lead the ACC in sacks, tackles for loss, he went out with a really big year. So a little surprised he's still available.
Yeah. I mean, he gave Ike Ekwonu the business a couple times in their one-on-ones. I mean, he got him like with legit moves. It wasn't just hustle plays or anything like that. And that's why you like him. his floor is that he's a really good run defender. Like he is like that. He's going to step in and it's like, okay, we at least know we got like a number 2. And then you're hoping because he's older, okay, you might be a little more cautious about what he can do as a pass rusher, but he competes and he's tough and like he has enough upside as a pass rusher. It's interesting, but his fall is pretty crazy. I thought he'd be way gone by now. His over under at Vegas was 9.5, I believe. So, and we're at 25 right now. So that's pretty big drop.
Can I ask you guys a question? Are we going to see another quarterback drafted tonight?
So which team would it be? It
would be a trade up probably.
Or
so
it would Titans are next.
Yeah. Hey, they're kind of revamping things.
Yeah.
I mean,
Packers might trade out 28.
with Detroit
the
now,
Falcons. Would you move up to get Malik Willis?
Absolutely not. Again, we've talked about this with Atlanta. I stay the course. I trust how bad I'm going to be.
Right.
And I stay the course, and I look at next year's quarterback class and say, you know what? I'd much rather be swimming in those waters than these.
Well, but it doesn't. I mean, you're using a second, and then maybe I don't know if it's a third or whatever it is.
Pass.
I mean, but the value of the pick is not as bad as using the 8th overall pick.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit different. And I 100%.
How do you think about this? Because if you draft a guy in the second round, isn't that starter territory where you're trying to give him reps, you're trying to buy into the plan? I just think that it's difficult to look at this situation the way the Eagles have.
Yeah.
Where you have the second round pick, and even that was strange because of Wentz.
Right.
And that was they didn't pick him to be their starter.
Yeah.
But with Hurts, if a team picked a guy in that range and made him their starter from the get-go or even over the course of a year, you almost feel compelled to give that guy a chance to succeed. And then the pivot points away from it become more difficult to follow through on. That's just my thought about it.
Especially on Malik Willis. This isn't Kenny Pickett who is going to.
Wow.
We got Tyler Linderbaum off the board.
Love it.
To the Ravens.
So, I mean, the Ravens needed a center.
Yeah.
I mean, with the way that they're off,
maybe they liked him at 14. They're like, hey, he's dropping. Let's get some picks and get our guy anyway. So
give us those short arms.
So this is interesting to me, Nate, because Tyler Linderbaum, most people said is a zone center, right?
Yep.
That's everything we heard about him. When I thought Jets, that was my first thought is you're in that system. The Ravens are not a zone-based running team.
Counter.
So this is a really, really interesting fit, Dane.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is. Sorry, real quick, but it's gonna be interesting too because he can still pull.
Yes, he's got great movement.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but how do they utilize that? Like that, it's interesting. It's a totally different type of style of player. This is a team that started Orlando Brown at tackle, just because how big he was. Like they wanted those big, heavy guys.
So do they use him as kind of a weapon in the way that the Eagles have figured out how to use Jason Kelce, where it's not like traditional zone running when you're reaching guys, but you're using him as a puller, you're using his movement skills? What do you think about this, Dane?
That you have to, or you're not drafting him.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason you draft Tyler Linderbaum is because of that range, that mobility that he plays with, and the ability to reach, the ability to be a cutoff. I mean, he can do it so well and so efficiently that there are times he's going to line up against a defensive tackle that's a lot longer than him and going to be able to create push.
Yep.
And Linderbaum, there's only so much he can do to combat that. But if you're going to draft him in the first round, it's because of that mobility, getting him on the move.
And that's the thing. We always think, it's just the zone stuff too. Like Kelsey's best plays with the Eagles is him on a pin pull,
right?
Freaking just getting out in space.
That's what I'm thinking. Are they going to weaponize him in the run game? What kind of stuff can they do with him?
I think we'll see.
My gears are turning now.
Yep.
It's exciting to think about.
I think we'll see more pin pull stuff.
By the way,
with Dobbins.
I would say the last time the Ravens committed to an Iowa interior offensive lineman, it turned out
Marshall
okay.
Yanda?
Yeah,
it worked out okay.
Man, it's been a while since you brought up Marshall Yanda.
You think I'm going to miss an opportunity to bring up Marshall Yanda on this podcast?
I got to keep the streak going with
What
Zach.
Do you think this is? How long have you known me?
I know. I got to keep my streak going with Zach Pascal. But there we go. We threw it in. Oh, he pairs great with A.J. Brown. Dang it. I missed the shot.
This is a real blow to Zach Pascal snap counts that he's going to get in Philly. Man, that's really upsetting.
My favorite glue guy.
I mean, if there's a Baltimore Raven, it's Tyler Linderbaum.
To me, it was Jordan Davis and Tyler Linderbaum.
Yeah.
Two guys I would keep coming back to. I mean, I totally agree with you.
So they turn Hollywood Brown into Tyler Linderbaum, basically.
Yep.
A trade I absolutely love. A trade that Cardinals would never make.
No. Right. No. Well, I'm so blown what AJ Brown went for and what Hollywood Brown went for on the same night. Like that is just, it's still gonna take some time to wrap my mind around
Lindsay was absolutely right. The wide receiver, not just who was drafted, but the trades. It's definitely I think the story. And we're not done. Wide receivers are still probably coming. We got another trade.
Yep.
Jets moving back up. Jets will have 3 first-round picks.
Jets back up to 26. They give up 35, 69, and 163 to move up those 9 spots. Dane, we talked about Jermaine Johnson at 4.
Yep.
We're at 26 now.
Yep.
And the Jets could potentially get their pass rusher that we thought they might be drafting.
Look at them. They're giddy right now.
I think there's a good chance they would have drafted him at 4 if the right weapon wasn't there at 10. So, I mean, this has got to be Jermaine Johnson, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if they get a pass rusher, Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to argue with that as a whole in terms of what they needed and what they want to be. That's really fun.
I mean, who are their pass rushers besides? I mean, Carl Lawson's coming off the injury.
So my question is, what I had
inside.
here when I was thinking about them drafting an edge guy.
Yeah.
I asked Connor this on the podcast. When it's 1st and 10, who are your edge guys?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to play Jermaine? And taking a guy at 26 is different than taking him at 4.
Yeah, this
right.
Is
you
great.
feel he can be a rotation guy even more so. You
Right.
can have him on the bench because they pay John Franklin Myers. So if Lawson's going to come back on the right timeline, he's going to be ready for camp. You have Lawson and John Franklin Myers theoretically as your 1st and 10 edge guys. On 3rd and 8, you bump John Franklin Myers inside.
Right.
And now you have that flexibility that San Francisco really enjoys. So it's different at 4 than it is at 26.
Yes.
If Jermaine Johnson's playing 42% of the snaps, and if it is Jermaine Johnson, then I think that calculus is a little bit different this late in the draft.
Absolutely. It's a much easier pill to swallow at 26 than, 4, like all the limitations, the age and what we brought up. But it's like, this makes so much more sense as slotting him and what he's going to potentially be.
With the 26th pick in the 2022 NFL draft, the New York Jets select Jermaine Johnson.
This is a have your cake and eat it too situation.
I think they would have drafted Jermaine Johnson over Kayvon Thibodeau. I really do. I think that they just looked at Jermaine Johnson, what he offers them. Now, a Senior Bowl guy, they didn't coach him at the Senior Bowl, but they saw him. Mm-hmm. And again, we just got done talking about him as a run defender, as a pass rusher. The motor is great. Production is there. So there's just a lot to like about what he brings to your defense. And Joe Douglas and Coach Saleh wanted to come out of the first round with a pass rusher. And I think a small part of them, it was tough for them to probably go receiver at 10. Mm-hmm. They wanted to get that pass rusher, but they're able to come back. I don't think they ever thought this was a possibility. They come back here at 26, and they still have a high pick in the second round. They still at pick 38. So, they're going to get 4 players in the top 40 that are going to help this team immediately.
Yeah. No, I know this is pretty much ideal for them. It really is, because it's what they view as a top 5 talent. They're getting in their 20s. And also, like you said, having that second round pick, we when we're going into this, we were talking about all these teams that had all this draft capital, and the Jags move up. Yeah,
they did.
Who was 27?
Yeah,
Tennessee.
So they traded 33.
Or Tampa Bay was 27.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, but now the Jets, it's interesting that like you said, they're having a cake and eat it too, because now they're getting another true starter that like he can start day one for them and has a little bit of stuff to work with that they're going to love. No matter who else they add down the road, he's always going to be a useful player for them. So that matters. That really matters when you're taking these guys.
I liked watching Johnson when it was defined passing situations and he could just turn it up.
Yeah.
And he just really let it rip. And guess what you get to do in that Jets defense?
Yep.
It's exactly what it is. There's no read and react. There's no sitting back and seeing what's happening. It is all gas all the time. And I totally understand it. I mean, it's a lot of resources to devote to that spot.
Yeah,
when you've paid Carl Lawson, when you paid John Franklin Myers, and now you've spent a first round pick on a guy, but we've seen it.
Lawson's coming off the injury. You don't, know quite what he's going to be when he comes back. He just hits so many boxes with the Jets. He's length, 34-inch arms. 4.58 40. Production. He's a senior. Team captain. So intangibles. Those that type of things.
What is Joe Douglas's record on that? Is he drafted nothing but team captains forever?
Like
that matters. That's a big deal to them. And I think him and the coaching staff, they're very much aligned in that respect.
Yeah.
So I don't think they have imagined once they took Garrett Wilson at 10, they were excited to get Wilson. You know, that it's going to be that Zach Wilson, the Garrett Wilson connection, Wilson to Wilson. But they also, it was a hard pill to swallow knowing they're passing on a guy like Jermaine Johnson, never thinking they'd be able to get him, 20-some picks later.
Yeah. I mean, him and Quinnen Williams against the run is going to be pretty monstrous. Like put those two on the same side, and that's going to be really hard to run against. So like that helps. I know it makes sense that they took Wilson at 10. They understand, all of us kind of were guessing. It's like, hey, the running receivers are going to be in that early teens. So they got their guy. They had to. It's like, that's the situation of this. And this is just the bonus. And again, when you have picks, you're able to do stuff like this. You're able to do stuff like this.
Yes.
And when you have a rookie quarterback and a rookie contract, you can spend the way that they did. I mean, if you look at it, and this is a team that beyond all the picks they had, they spent this offseason. They went out and got Langston Tomlinson. They signed DJ Reed. They went and got the 2 tight ends. They got Jordan Whitehead on a deal. They signed Jacob Martin to a 3-year deal. But that's a rotational rusher again. But it's $4 million a year. It's not breaking the bank. But they've brought in a lot of bodies here. Their offensive line, we talked about, even without Icky, they still have a group there that they've spent on that could potentially kind of fall into place. The receiving core we like. Now it's all about the last piece of the puzzle. Yeah, all you can do when you have a guy on that rookie deal and when you've made a trade like the Jamal Adams trade is give him every chance to succeed. It's make sure that we leave nothing on the table when it comes to whether or not this is the guy. And I think they've done about as well as they could in that regard, Dane.
No doubt. I mean, you look at the 3 first-round picks, each of them is going to contribute in a big way as rookies.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Sauce Gardner. If he doesn't win a starting job, I'll be shocked. Garrett Wilson is going to be a big part of that
over
offense.
Breece Hall.
Yeah, exactly. The converted running back. So and then now with Jermaine Johnson,
it tested well.
Jermaine Johnson. Even if we can see a running back at some point today. Oh, maybe we'll see. But and then now Jermaine Johnson. I mean, even if he doesn't start from day one, he's going to be a big part of that pass rush rotation. So each one of these rookies, and again, 38 tomorrow, an early second rounder. They could go a lot of different directions there. So they're gonna have plenty of options here. And Jaguars trading up. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Moving up from, I'm guessing, 33 to 27. Looking for
who do you think this might be?
One of the is Devin Lloyd? They could use a linebacker.
They certainly could.
What don't they need?
That's
true. Yeah. What don't
So they took the edge.
I mean, Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle,
or the DBs too, because they can take a safety, but that's the thing. Why would you move up to 27? Because one of them would probably be there at 33,
unless they love Lewis Cine or. So this was the Bucks, right? So the Tampa's out of the first round.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
The Ravens drafted Kyle Hamilton and Tyler Linderbaum.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
2 of, you could argue, the 10 best players in the draft.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a more on-brand draft? It's like we're just going to draft the guys who are the best players in college football and see how it works out. Which is very different than what they did last year, by the way. OA is like the opposite of that.
Yeah,
they're all over the board, but I think for whatever reason, everything they do just inspires good feelings.
They had their fun with height, weight, speed last year, and they're like, okay, now we're going to go back to like the football guys.
I feel like I say the same thing every year with Baltimore. Is that good players seem to fall to Baltimore every year.
Every year.
It really is bizarre.
It's been like that.
Wait until they get 6 of them with their 25 picks in the 4th round.
They'll turn it into
something.
something.
Make that same joke 6 more times over the course of the weekend. You guys watch me do it.
They'll hit on at least 2 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 of them will be productive starters at least.
And then they'll get flip those guys for comp picks 4 years later, and then they'll do the same thing all over.
Maybe they didn't have enough comp picks this year, and that's why they're like, we need.
No, they have 2 in the 4th round. They have tons of them. They had Matt Judon get signed. They had Yannick Ngakoue who got signed away. Listen, they got plenty of comp picks this year. Don't worry. They're always going to have them.
They love them. They love those 3rd and 4th rounders.
They have the 100th pick, which is a comp pick, and they have 2. Oh, that's David Culley. So they got the 100th pick for David Culley, and then they have 139 and 141, which are comp picks traditionally.
This is a interesting range here right now. There's a lot of names you can throw. Because
you think the Jags move up from Malik Willis?
I know. We're running out of spots for these quarterbacks.
He's just out on Lawrence. He's done.
And then,
it was an Urban Meyer pick.
I don't think they'll move for all the hats right there. I don't think they'll move up.
Showing Dax Hill.
Yeah. Does he have a hat ready?
No, it doesn't look like he's got a lot of hats there.
He does. Obviously, they've spent a lot of money and resources on defensive backs over the last couple of years. Safety, not as much. They have Andre Sisco, who Urban Meyer didn't know who he was. Yeah. So that they drafted him in the 3rd round last year. But other than that, they paid Rayshon Jenkins. I mean, that might just be a temporary thing. Corner, they drafted Tyson Campbell in the 2nd round last season, high in the 2nd round. They paid Shaq Griffin, and they just paid Darius Williams. But safety feels like it's much more in flux than their corner position is if they want to go out and get a guy like Dax Hill. They signed Foye Oluokun to a monster deal, right? But they don't have a second linebacker, off-ball linebacker, like currently on the roster they feel good about. Shaq Quarterman is, I'm sitting here looking at the depth chart. He's the other guy right now. So that potentially is one of those. But do you move up for an off-ball linebacker when a bunch of them are on the board and you're picking at 33?
Right. I think, in my 2nd round mock, I had him going to Kobe Dean at 33. Getting that linebacker, good chance he falls there.
Maybe they're worried about New England at 29.
Yep, definitely possible. Or again, maybe they love one of these safeties.
27th pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. With the 27th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Devin Lloyd,
there you go,
linebacker, Utah.
At a certain point, the value is just too much, and if you don't feel good that he's going to get past the Patriots, going to be there for you at 33. They didn't give up a ton. So, Devin Lloyd's a really good player. He's a true 4-down player. He doesn't have to come off the field. You want him to rush. You want him to play the run. You want him to drop and cover. Former high school safety. The production that he offers.
He was a top 10 player on your board, wasn't he?
He's number 9. Yeah. He's the best available here. And I get the value, the off-ball linebacker conversation. But this guy is not Micah Parsons. But the way that you can use Micah Parsons in so many different ways, Devin Lloyd at least has that versatility where, you can keep the offense guessing with how you deploy Devin Lloyd on the field.
And you said 4 downs, that matters so much that he can stay on the field on passing downs. And if say you go super light and go like a dime, you still keep on the field, as a passing down guy, because does so well in coverage. So and you're picking at 27. That's a little more, again, easier to swallow than saying like you're pick 12 for a 2-down linebacker, or something like that, because his coverage ability is his, calling card.
We talk about, and me and Deontay did an entire show about this, about where you find modern linebackers and what they look like. They look like Devin Lloyd. Yeah. For the most part, the guys that have worked out, if we're making an argument for players in this range, the ESPN comp that they just made was Darius Leonard. He has a 97th percentile wingspan. 74th percentile arm length. He has 33-inch arms as a linebacker at 6'2 3/4, almost 6'3. Those guys that we're talking about, those best linebackers in the league, Darius Leonard with the length, Fred Warner with the frame. Those are the guys that typically have worked out, and Devin Lloyd physically checks a lot of those same boxes.
If you want to poke holes, he's an older player. He's going to be a 24-year-old rookie, a little slender. It doesn't have a lot of that body armor on him. But yeah, again, we're nitpicking there, and a player that just, it's easy to like him, easy to see how he could fit in any scheme. And a guy that I was talking to a scout about this, and the scout mentioned this. He's like, I love players that when they get their hands on the ball on defense, they make something happen. Devin Lloyd had 4 interceptions this year, 2 returned for touchdowns. Like he just, he was in the right position to make the pick. But not only that is, he went back for the pick 6. That matters to teams. And so a guy that can not only create turnovers, but they go change a scoreboard, that matters.
Yeah. The guy that I kind of came back to, I did a show kind of comparing some of these guys, was, I think he was a better prospect than him, but Shaq Thompson. And that's what that's
that rangy,
right. Kind of long. Not that I really kind of like when you picture a linebacker, you're like, kind of doesn't look like a linebacker, but I get it. He was 230 and change, but that's a guy that a running guy, like a running athlete at linebacker, as far as different than a plugger. And that matters. The offenses are going to make you go coast to coast. And so you need a guy with length that can take off a block and keep running. And if you're in the run game, tackle the guy, or being in the pass and having all that coverage ability. So that's when you're talking about modernish linebackers. And then that's a guy that body type and everything, got that long torso that he kind of has. And that's kind of how Shaq Thompson's built as well.
We're talking about this, Dane. When we got outside the top 15 or so, it was going to get weird potentially. Right. And even if you don't love positional value with an off-ball linebacker in the first round, it's a 27th overall pick in a draft where a lot of the corners that we like will come off the board. Most of the pass rushers have come off the board. They're running out of spots for guys. And it's not like the Jags don't have pass rushers. They have They pick with the first overall pick, Trayvon Walker. And they have Trayvon Walker now. They picked up Josh Allen's 5th-year option yesterday. It's getting late. So, I mean, it does make sense when you consider some of the other guys available. We just talked about how much they've spent on corners. You can understand it. You can understand how they get here.
Investing in the front seven. I'm sure Coach Peterson, maybe not loving that as much, but you know what? It's going to help your defense. And, you know, Josh Allen's still there, you know, former first-round pick who they still have high hopes for. You know, really becoming a true playmaker for them. So these are building blocks on defense in areas that they needed building blocks. And so time will tell, but I think they got 2 really good players, 2 players that ranked top 10 on my draft board. So well, I mean, we'll find out.
Yeah. And then, but even some of the other signings they had, you know, the fully Fatukasi, like they're really, good
job.
I know, I'm pretty proud of it because I spent the last 30 seconds staring at his name. But he's a plugger. And again, you're building through the spine. You're making it easier on your whole defense. Oh, shoot, we don't have ideal, you know, coverage stuff. But now we have all this talent now through the middle of our defense. And the same thing we're talking about with like the Eagles and Jordan Davis. This is linebacker, but same kind of interior of the defense. Now you're making it harder on offenses on 3rd down, on passing downs, because you're much better against a run. And that's where you're injecting this talent into it.
So the Packers back on the board now, do we see where that 2nd-tier receiver run starts with the Packers, Chiefs,
even Patriots at 29 or like,
I hope they pick a guard. There's no guards left, but I hope they do something that's just so Packers-ish that it's.
I know. You can kind of narrow down.
The brand is so strong, and I just want them to keep riding with it.
I mean, Karlaftis here.
Karlaftis, yeah.
They could use a pass rusher.
I know they could go. Packers were so hard to mock for. It was just because it was like, even if you don't go receiver for them, it's like, well, they can replenish their defense, and people will go, well, we have starters there. It's like, it's the Packers.
Yes, exactly. So it's Travis Jones. Right? Yeah, obviously.
Like, they have a plan and everything. This is how long our show's been going.
But I mean, my best available, just to reset it, George Karlaftis, the top player available for me, Daxton Hill, Devontae Wyatt, Andrew Booth, Arnold Ebiketie, Nakobe Dean, Malik Willis, Lewis Seen. So, I mean, there's still some good players out there.
Yeah.
This is a good stretch to need a safety. If you like Dax Hill, if you like Seen, it seems like that might be a spot where if that's the position you need, like New England sitting there at 29, right?
Right.
I mean, Devin McCourty is my age. I mean, there's some things to consider when it comes to their defensive secondary and who might be available with that pick. Green Bay picking at 28 here. We'll see what happens. Andrew Whitworth looks great.
Doesn't he look tan?
That just a.
Thank y'all. Whose house? That's what I'm talking about.
Just loving retirement.
I am very humbled and grateful to stand before you as the 2021 Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year. I would love to thank.
He's a player that definitely proved me wrong. I mean, I liked Whitworth coming out of LSU.
Yeah.
Never thought he'd have that type of career. I mean,
he was unlike any. When you look at his career trajectory, and there are so many things about him that are exceptions. We talked about it off the top when we were discussing the guard to tackle transition. Him playing as much guard as he did early in his career, being sort of a utility man that filled in at spots where they needed him to after they had injuries. Him going where he did.
Right.
2nd round tackles are a wasteland.
Yes.
It, for the most part, Tyler Smith got drafted 24th overall today. We collectively as a culture decided he wasn't a 1st round pick.
Right.
They get overdrafted. It's how it always works.
Yep.
If you look at the history of the position, very, very rarely do those guys succeed. He's a Hall of Fame player who was drafted in that range. Even when you think about his best years, a lot of them coming in the last 5 years of his career, when he was in his late 30s. Yeah. If you miss on a guy, having somebody who's the exception to the rule in 3 different ways, they're worse guys to miss on.
And this is why NFL teams care so much about the intangibles, the toughness, the competitiveness, because that's a lot of times guys that maybe they're lacking a few other areas.
With the 28th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle, Georgia.
I marked him 22.
Devontae Wyatt. 2nd Georgia defensive tackle now drafted.
There's some people who are just going to, oh my God, just going to rush Brian Gutekunst's house.
They only watch Georgia film. That's all they did.
I give him credit because I I don't think there was a receiver
No,
necessarily worthy of this.
Especially
On a
the type of
football
guys they
level,
want.
I'm
Yeah.
sure it's totally fine.
Yes.
It's just hilarious.
They've been so geared up for it.
The year where they have 2 first-round picks, they trade away Devontae Adams. This is finally the year, and they come away with a linebacker and a defensive tackle from the first round.
Both from Georgia.
Both from
Yeah.
Georgia.
That's I mean, yeah, obviously
What do you make of the fit with Wyatt and Kenny Clark?
that's interesting.
Yeah.
And
Kind of samey, right?
yeah, I mean, well, with Wyatt, obviously playing next to Jordan Davis, they did use him in different ways, and they didn't really give him a chance to sing, where he was kind of like Trayvon Walker, kind of like just what they ask of that defensive line. And so I'll be eager to see how they use Devontae Wyatt, give him some of those pass rush opportunities. But man, the motor he plays with, and if not for Jordan Davis, we'd be talking a whole lot more about Devontae Wyatt.
Yeah.
I mean, he ran in the force. He actually ran a better 40 time. Obviously, not as big as Jordan Davis. He's still
300
305.
pounds.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we're still an impressive dude. A little older, some character stuff in the background that, do your due diligence on. But this is a good football player who the motor, the quickness that he plays with, you add guys that are going to give you disruption up front. And I think he's one of those guys that can do that.
Well, there was times last year the Packers were running like 3 defensive tackle fronts.
Right.
Like, so now you get a guy that doesn't always have to be a 3. He can, you can move him like a gap or 2 over based on what you want to do up front. So you kind of can use him. He's not just a stiff run only guy. Like, he has juice to him. And like you mentioned, the timing or his traits and everything, but that's how he plays too. It's like he can be a disruptive guy. I like it a lot. I think this makes sense because they don't need him technically right away, but he's going to contribute and they can rotate guys. This is a defense. They didn't blitz much last year. They're another 2 high defense. Yeah. So it's a defense like, okay, let's just like how the Bills like to do. Let's get as much talent up there. Let's rotate him, keep him fresh. Take 10 snaps off of Kenny Clark. Why it takes those 10 snaps. Now you can just piece those guys. It's just the minutes that they play. And I think that's where it's going to really help this team that's obviously contending.
Sammy Watkins gets 600 targets next year.
No, I know, right? They'll get Alec Pierce in the second round. It'll all be good.
There you go.
You look at it, they signed Jerron Reed as well this offseason.
Yep.
So you have Dean Lowry there, who had a pretty good season last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, probably we consider as a career year for him. Kenny Clark is there, has been paid. So I mean, that defense was already pretty good. Yep. And now you're adding even more pieces to it. I can't get over the length of linebacker. Watching those 2 guys roll in the middle of the field, if that works out, is going to be really fun to watch. Not for me, but for other people, I'm sure it's going to be really fun to watch.
For the general fall fan.
Yeah. Listen, I am a winner tonight because I don't have to watch Chris Olave play with Aaron Rodgers for the next 2 years.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be able to do it.
That would have been terrifying.
I would have had to really consider keeping this job if that happened, because I'm not sure I would have been able to endure it.
Oh man, well, at least you didn't even have to worry about a pick either. You just kind of just get.
Tonight's great.
I know.
Chris Olave did not go to the Packers, and my team doesn't have to screw anything up. I just get to sit here and enjoy myself.
No, that's a good point. I mean, and then now you got to worry about the Lions maybe a little bit. Yeah, no, there you are. You got time. You got time.
Hey, we're down to the final 4 picks in the first round, and we're still okay. No running back.
No running back.
No quarterback. No second quarterback. No tight end, which isn't as big of a surprise. But it's just really interesting if we're going to see Malik Willis or not tonight.
Yeah.
New England. Talk about Dax Hill.
Yeah.
Some corners still on the board. Seems like if Lewisine also still available.
Nakobe Dean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nakobe Dean does not fit their physical profile the same way that some of these other guys did at linebacker. So that would be a little bit surprising.
But maybe they moved back because they were comfortable with the Nakobe Dean.
Yeah.
They're just circling Wheel Chanel and just waiting until dates.
I literally made that joke today.
That's what they're just doing.
You look at him, it's like, you could pencil it in in the second round.
No, I mean, this is a weird spot. Do we get someone else that bumps into these last 4 slots, to take the second quarterback? Like, that's also interesting to look at too. I don't know. It's
Minnesota is sitting at 32, correct? Because they have the Lions pick, because that's
who
the Lions traded up with. So, man,
that would actually be.
I'd
be
be
very curious.
That'd be spicy.
They took Teddy at 32, didn't they? That's
they did.
Yeah, that's they know the value.
I'd be shocked. I'd be absolutely shocked.
I would too, but it'd be interesting.
That's a ballsy move for your first couple months on the job.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if that
This one
happened.
sets the path, you know? You want to make a statement.
This, I mean, this is, I'm sure if you actually looked at the picks and bore this out, it might not be true, but this just feels like the most Patriots draft imaginable, where they trade down into like the late 20s and like there's a couple safeties and corners on the board, and like
they're going to take the punter from San Diego State.
No team has a smaller draft board than the Patriots. Like I would bet it's probably double digits, not triple digits. I mean, it's a small draft board, so they have a small pool of players they're picking from. They don't care what everyone else does. They've got their own way they do things. They've got a smaller draft board. This is going to be interesting. I cannot wait to see who they pick.
Yeah. No, this one's going to be very interesting because they also just – all right, hold on.
In the 2022 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots select Cole Strange, guard.
Yes!
Chattanooga.
Wow!
Yes, I love it. Cole Strange. That's great. I mean,
right?
Cole Strange is awesome.
He's great.
I did not see him going in the first 50 picks.
No.
Let alone in the first round.
You just talked about how they do not care, and their
They
board
do
does
not
not
care.
look like
No.
anybody else's.
Exactly. That's it. I mean, Cole Strange is, I mean, he made money at the Senior Bowl. Center, guard. This guy is awesome. I love this pick. This is awesome.
And he's got like a Patriots O-lineman face mask
does.
too. He's got
Yeah,
the
he
old
does.
school cage with the bar.
Well, if you look at New England, it was funny walking into this draft because the two positions that they're weak or thin, where they're typically not, were interior offensive line and the secondary. We think of this team and the way they've typically built this thing as being flush at those two spots. But now no Joe Tooney. Ted Karras is even gone. Shaq Mason traded away. They lose J.C. Jackson. Those are the two spots like, oh, man, the Patriots need some guys here.
Yep.
And so seeing them go interior offensive line, not shocking in terms of need, but they've shopped in a much cheaper aisle typically at this position, especially for a guy coming from Chattanooga.
Yeah. And look, throw in the Kentucky tape, and you can see this guy go up against big boys and do his job at a high level. So, and then at Senior Bowl, same type of thing. And this is just the type of guy that I guarantee you won over the Patriots in meetings.
Yeah.
With the way he carries himself, he's all about ball, really smart guy. And you know, his background's really interesting. He was a defensive end, went to Air Force for about a month. And is like, all right, this isn't for me. Goes back closer to home. He's a Knoxville kid, goes to Chattanooga, and he was just a nonstop 5-year starter for them mostly at left guard. Played a little tackle, played a little center, and then going to the Senior Bowl, showing what he can do there. I mean, this guy is a lot of fun. Quickness, power. He's a little light in the lowers, but I mean, you wouldn't know it by the way he plays. He's just a tough SOB.
You are on cloud 9 right now.
I love it.
I love the energy that's coming off you right now. It's 8 o'clock. We've been at this for 3.5 hours. You needed this. You needed the Cole Strange juice.
Let's start the
late
second
in the draft
round.
here. Take us in for Kansas City.
Right.
George Karlaftis goes 30th overall to the Chiefs.
There's some questions. You know, we're going to hear his name called tonight or not, and we just sneak him in.
Chiefs are happy.
A lot of teams thought he was kind of just, you know, hitting his head against the ceiling. You know, he was there. This is him. This is what you're going to get. But you know what? What you're going to get is not a bad player. So even if he is a little tapped out, a guy that's the motor never quits. Again, skilled hand play. Not as long as you want, not as twitchy as you want, but you know, he's a guy that never quits, and he's a good athlete. Just a little more straight line-ish than the change of direction stuff.
Looking at those Chiefs picks, what did we say? Can they just refresh on defense some of those premium positions and get cheaper and help kind of balance out the way they've built this roster with some of those more expensive players? They come away with, I would think, Dane, you probably say 2 of the best football players in the draft.
Absolutely.
With McDuffie and Karlaftis at corner and edge.
Yep.
I mean, it aligns with some of the things we thought might happen.
And Karlaftis, what was cool to watch with him, because it's like each year he played in college, like most guys, but it was like he had like a distinct style each year, like for freshman, sophomore, junior. But like during the games, when I watched him at first, I was kind of underwhelmed. I was like, okay, you're not really doing much. Okay, yeah, that was a nice move. You got some pop to you. He got better during each game. It was almost like he was like throwing stuff against the wall, going like, does this work? Does this work? And then the second half, he would improve in a lot of games. So I always thought that was really interesting. Yeah, those lack of arm length is always going to be kind of a thing, but shoot, him and Joe Tooney can go against each other every day in practice, and they can just have great T-Rex battles every day. So, but I think he's just a good. I think he's a good football player. I think Chiefs fans should be really happy because like this, he's going to start and play really good reps for him early on.
I remember having a conversation in November with a Midwest scout about, okay, Hutchinson or Karlaftis, and he's like, I mean, just depends on the day. I might go one or the other. I mean, just both really good players. And so Hutchinson, he's got a little more in terms of the testing numbers and things like that, but Karlaftis is a darn good player.
Yes.
Nate, can you tell me, go back to Cole Strange for a second. Can you tell me the last interior offensive lineman the Patriots drafted in the first round?
First round?
First round.
Man.
Ooh,
that one dude.
You know the answer.
The one dude, like it was like 06 or something. Like
Logan Mankins in 2005.
Mankins.
Last time they did it. I mean, they've done well. Talking to a friend of the podcast, Dante Scarnecchia, about this and the way they've looked at those guys. I mean, Shaq Mason was a 4th round pick.
Yep.
Joe Tooney was a 3rd round pick. Guys with warts.
Yep.
But I think, Dane, kind of bring it back around to the conversation we were having before we started. Cole Strange going in the first round speaks to the draft that we're having.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the pool of players that are available and what you guys see. And this is an eye of the beholder type draft, even more so than we typically see. And I think that's how you end up with a guy like that going as high as he did.
Exactly what I said at the top, where we see second rounders go in the first round every year. This is the year we're going to see third rounders go in the first round. I mean, I say third rounders. I mean, what the collective
of course,
thought
the
was gonna
consensus,
be.
yes.
Right. And so, I had him. He was 73 overall on my board. I know, if like for DJ, I think he was 74th. I mean, Brandon Thorne was a big fan as well, but more in that third round area. Actually, I think Brandon might have had him in the early 4th. So a guy that's easy to appreciate, but sometimes with interior offensive linemen, it could be tough to nail down that value.
Yeah.
It's when exactly we feel comfortable drafting him. And for the Patriots, that was the first round. That's awesome.
I bet you those center snaps were just like, that was the capper for them. It was like seeing a guy that can play center for you is just so valuable that he can bump and all.
They love them, a dude who can do
they
a lot
love
of stuff,
that.
man.
They love that.
Absolutely love it.
They love these guys that can play both guard spots and center. That it matters. You only dress 7 offensive linemen. I know he's gonna be starting everything, but say the other starter goes down, he's playing guard and the center goes down. Okay, we just bump Cole over to center. Now we're not having 2 negatives, or really we're having a huge drop off at one of the positions. That matters so much. Was that the 9th offensive lineman taken in the first round?
But all 5 tackles, Tyler Smith,
2 guards in the center, and then and Strange
and 2.
So with
bold prediction.
The Bengals,
there you go.
We were talking about this coming into the draft, Nate, just about what we thought might make sense for Cincinnati, needs, everything else. Eli Apple on that 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Clearly the weak point on their defense. Dane, there's tons of corners available. Not tons, but several.
Gordon,
guys that we thought could be potential first-round picks.
Yes.
Kyler Gordon, Andrew Booth is still there.
Yep.
I mean, there are guys there at that spot if that's where they want to go.
They also want to go defensive line. Logan Hall is still out there.
They're not as deep as they were, right? You lose Ogunjobi,
Right,
even though they brought back BJ Hill. They still have DJ Reader there.
Yes.
I'm going to get there. We're get there. I'm right there. They still have DJ Reader. They still have BJ Hill, but not a ton of depth. Really nothing behind them. So if they wanted to go that direction, I can totally understand that. And then corner, I still think is the number 1 most glaring need on the roster at this point.
And it's a franchise that traditionally drafts corners in the first round.
Absolutely.
They'd love to do that. And so it just comes down to, where do they grade Kyler Gordon? Where are they with the injury stuff with Andrew Booth? Is that scare them at all? Is that something they have to worry about? So it might just come down to value in the Bengals board at this point in terms of who they take. So, yeah, we could see 2 Washington corners come off the board. Kyler Gordon, the straight line speed wasn't there, 4.52, but the short area stuff was remarkable. Yeah. And you love the aggressiveness that he plays with. Not as advanced in terms of route recognition and things like that as Trent McDuffie, his teammate, but still a guy that, again, to play in that scheme at Washington, they put a lot on their plates. And so you have to understand man versus zone, and based off what the offense is doing, if you're going to go to cover 2 to cover 3, all these different things. So Kyler Gordon is a player that could sneak into this first round, no doubt.
Another guy with inside versatility as well, right? Didn't he bump inside a little bit too? Like, and
Yes.
I just remember watching both of them. But
Right.
but that matters as well too. But Gordon, I actually liked Elam for them. I thought if he was here at 31, I would love that pick. So like corner, makes a lot of sense. Replenishing the D-line makes a lot of sense. It's just now you're getting into the range of, we're very much like it could be Ebiketie. Like it could be like a random guy like that, that, that brings some juice, or projected juice.
I gave him Logan Hall in my mock.
One,
I think that would make sense, but no, I think, Robert, to your point, corner, it's if they have a corner worthy of this pick on their board, then it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I agree. No, they won't go receiver.
We think.
That's,
yes.
I don't think they're going to be.
With the 31st pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals select Daxton Hill, defensive back, Michigan.
So now, we talk about him, safety, corner versatility, where you're going to line him up. They have two safeties, obviously.
But none under contract beyond this year.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Jesse Bates on the franchise tag. There's a little bit of uncertainty there. We also, Nate, we saw what they did in certain situations against a team like Kansas City, where they have Trey Flowers in that hyper-specific role. They're willing to use their defensive backs in a matchup way. Think about all the ways they used Von Bell last year. So the creativity they're kind of willing to deploy and how hyper-specific some of their game plans can be. You have a guy like Daxton Hill with that versatility. It makes sense for a team like Cincinnati that is shaped that way on the back end.
And they like to bring all those third down pressures. So having a guy that's like, is he bringing heat or is he covering the slot? And he's a valid guy covering the guy from the slot, not just a body. That helps so much too. Even right here, you see him right here. Looked like he was faking the pressure and walks out over to the slot, and he can legit guard receivers there. That matters when you're working from these hard positions on a team that likes to get aggressive on third down like Cincinnati does.
Do you think he can play outside corner full time if they asked him to?
I don't know why not. That's there's nothing on this tape that says it might be a little rough for him. I think just the experience factor, but right there, I think he's the best blitzing defensive back in this class.
Him and Mike Hilton just like doing stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
they can get creative with him. That's what's really nice. And he's a great athlete. So it's just like, it's just nice little cherry on top.
He has a really good understanding of how to use that athleticism. So, he's going to bait, he's going to give a little bit of space, then he's going to close in a flash and he's going to go make a play on the ball. So versatility. Why not try him at outside corner?
Yeah.
Try him in the slot, try him in all of these nickel packages. You do a lot of things with Daxton Hill.
Yeah, absolutely.
We wanted, if we're thinking about just the plan that the Bengals had, Nate, obviously use free agency just to fill the holes in the offensive line, patch that up, going into the draft that's figured out. We don't have to stretch ourselves at all to find a starter immediately.
Yep.
How are they going to add just a little bit to the defense? Somebody you can just drop in and this is a slightly different version of what we did last year. This is slightly more pop in this area. That's exactly what this is. That's how I think you have to be thinking about this if you're Cincinnati, and that feels like what this pick is.
And he's so different than the safeties they have. Comparing him and Bates, Jesse Bates is such a Bates is so smart, could be limited at long speed and stuff like that. Hill's a smart player in his own right, but just has a little more juice and everything. So it just gives them a different flavor that they can use. And if they want to be creative, they don't get put in a weird spot with it. I love what you guys are saying about trying them out of the outside corner. Maybe you just stole a guy. Maybe we just stole an outside corner with pick 31 because we were the ones willing to do it. You never know how that works out. And we just can't overstate the nickel versatility that he has.
Can you think of another example of that where that's worked out with the guy, where there was a little bit of uncertainty about his role and then they just dropped him in? Jalen Ramsey was, I guess, a little bit like that.
That's because you don't. I remember talking about this with Jalen Ramsey because you always hear about he's a slow corner. Let's move him to safety. But rarely do you see the hyper athletic safety. Oh, let's move him outside corner. That was one of the questions with Jalen Ramsey. But it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Because most teams are going to go, let's try every DB at corner first and see if you can stick, and then we'll bump you to safety. But you never know.
Final pick here, just to reset the board here. My top 25 players are all gone. Okay. 26 is Andrew Booth, Arnold Ebiketie, Nakobe Dean, Malik Willis, Lewis Seen. Those are the top 5 available on my board. I don't think we're going to see Malik Willis here. I think we can cross that out. Andrew Booth, again, it's the injury stuff. That's really what's driving this. We mocked Kyle Hamilton a lot. The safety to the Vikings still have Lewis Seen out there.
That secondary period. They need players in the secondary. Patrick Peterson's on a 1-year deal. Cam Dantzler's really the only other outside corner with any sort of experience. Shannon Sullivan's there in the slot, but they 100% need help back there. If you're looking at the roster, I would say corner and that other safety spot opposite Harrison Smith are probably the biggest needs they have on the entire team.
No doubt, no doubt. And, I think it's a position because this is a team that's contending right now. I mean, they're not exactly.
I love that you keep saying that. They want to think they are.
Well, whether or not we think they
that's
are.
That's their argument.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's where their mindset is.
Yeah.
So they're not going to draft necessarily for, they are going to think long-term based on what this general manager, what we think he's going to be doing, but they also are going to be looking at the now and who's going to help us right now.
Yeah.
When we suit up here in September.
Doesn't that just feel like Lewis Cine then?
No, yeah, I mean, on my best available, with Andrew Booth, assuming the injuries are prohibitive, taking him here at the spot, Cine does make a lot of sense. He's so much fun to watch play because he plays so fast. There are some, I think he can see things a little bit quicker. Some of the play recognition things that he needs to get better at, but you love the play speed. He ran a 4.3.
Yeah.
I mean, it just another Georgia defender out there that's just running at full speed, making plays.
And they put a lot on his plate at the safety spot. Like they treated him like an NFL safety, like as far as what we see these guys. There's two-way guys.
Extremely smart.
What do you mean by that?
As coming up, playing the run, rotating down, passing stuff off like over routes and all that. They put a
32nd
lot on
pick
his plate. So
in the 2022 NFL draft,
Harrison Smith replacement.
the Minnesota Vikings select Lewis Cine, defensive back,
Makes a ton of
Georgia.
sense.
So you say that, Nate, and just the versatility, being able to do different things. Ed Donatel is the defensive coordinator here in Minnesota. Ed Donatel has worked with Vic Fangio for the last 75,000 years.
Yep.
They're running that system
Yep.
where you need those safeties to be interchangeable, where you need them to have a varied skill set, where you need them to see the game in that way because, again, they're asked to do a little bit of everything. Does this make sense on a couple different levels for you, Dane?
No question. And I mean, I keep going back to this team that wants to compete now with the Kirk Cousins and the offense they have. And you drop Lewis Cine in there in the back end, a guy that has range, a lot of toughness, the physicality that he plays with, a really smart player who interviewed really, really well. I'm actually kind of surprised he was still available at 32.
Well, it's funny because in the process, what have you said? You said you thought Lewis Cine might be Kyle Hamilton at a discount.
Yeah.
They trade from 13 to 32 in that range where Kyle Hamilton might go, and they get Lewis Cine while picking up an extra pick.
Yeah, and that maybe that was, I don't know if that was the plan exactly, but it worked out for them. No question. And I mean, I just have to mention this with Lewis Cine, is my favorite kind of background trajectory. Born in Haiti, grew up in Florida, learned to play football in Boston, became a top recruit in Texas, and then an All-American at Georgia. And now he's going to Minnesota. I mean, that's awesome. Just you don't ever hear about something like that. And so this is, Vikings are getting a really good player who is on the upward trajectory. He is still getting better, still learning how good he could be with that speed, that intelligence, everything he offers. So, like I said, I'm kind of surprised he's still there, but I love the pick for Minnesota.
They played a great clip there. That's like it sums them up perfectly. It was against Alabama, and Alabama ran a crosser right there in a dig, and they ran a switch release there. And Cine took the guy that his teammate was supposed to take because his teammate botched it. And I remember watching it on film, and I was like, he covered up that play, and on top of it, he was so athletic, he ran down the crosser, and that's what he brings to the table. It's like he has those athletic traits, but on top of it, he plays so smart, and so it's like they have a safety there that he's going to learn that's going to be great with Harrison Smith. So it's like, okay, you've learned from him for a year or two while you play a little bit. Okay, now you take it over and you're going to be our guy.
He was the MVP of the title game. I mean, he showed up in big ways. The Georgia defense, you think of all many studs they had, he led the team in passes defended. So this is a player that, not only the traits, but production is there.
Yep.
There's just a lot of boxes that he checks.
First round is over, Dane. Anybody that you're just surprised did not go, for the most part, it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad I mocked Cole Strange of the Patriots in my mock. That was great. No, I mean, Andrew Booth, not a surprise. Malik Willis, really, that's it.
Yeah.
We thought there was a good chance where Malik Willis is going to go in the first round. I think we've been saying this, but I mean, Twitter loves Malik Willis more than the NFL does. Yes. That's pretty clear. But Malik Willis is still a really talented player with a ton of ability. So now it's okay. Where's he going to land? Tampa at 33? Would they be interested?
Oh,
I mean, we've got
2 second-round picks on 2 corners or 2 quarterbacks in 2 years.
I mean,
Kyle Trask couldn't get any more opposite players than him and Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask can't run out of his own shadow.
Lewis Cine, the 5th Georgia defensive player taken in the first round. 5 Georgia defensive players go in the first round.
And we're going to see.
Was Georgia good last year?
I heard that.
Yeah,
they're going to have a couple more drafted tomorrow, too. So, yeah, they're not done. Nakobe Dean, Channing Tindall.
George Pickens going 39.
Oh, there you go. I'm surprised we didn't see that second wide receiver run.
Yeah.
You know,
I thought one would sneak in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Christian Watson or Pickens or Sky Moore, whoever. A little surprised that we had all the receivers off the board in the first 18 picks.
Yeah.
And then nothing the final 14 picks or so.
It's like that was the end of that chapter. That's
and honestly, I mean, that's what I think should have been.
Yeah.
You know,
it should have.
Yeah. You and I are same page there, but still a little surprising.
Yeah. I thought someone would reach. We keep talking about second rounders are getting bumped up, even third rounders are getting bumped up. So, and receiver is a position that people sometimes reach for. Like, it just is. Like,
and
so
what could the quarterback run look like tomorrow?
Exactly.
And where does it happen?
Now you got a lot more teams that are comfortable now. They're like, okay, now I'll take this guy in a second.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we wonder, okay, the 5th-year option. And sometimes we overrate the 5th-year option, I think, a little bit.
It's honestly been a detriment
for quarterbacks.
In the last few years, more than a benefit.
100%.
And now that it's fully guaranteed, that calculus changes a little bit at that position, because you're really, I mean, look at what they're doing with Baker and with Sam Darnold now in Carolina. You're sitting there with $19 million fully guaranteed. It's like, it's almost an albatross. It's like an anchor around your ankle.
If he's good enough, you're extending him at that point. So I think the 5th-year option might be a little overrated, especially when it comes to quarterbacks.
It's really interesting, and we'll see what happens tomorrow, because guess what? We're going to be back here.
I can't wait.
Guys, thank you so much for spending the evening with us. We had a great time. We will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, breaking down rounds 2 and 3. Gentlemen, that was fun. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you soon.